Honorable Steenhuisen, if it's wrong, you can't repeat it. It shouldn't be repeated. And no, let me explain this. Honorable members, it is appropriate that you understand that the language used in the House must be decent language. It is inappropriate for anyone to use it for whatever reason. Even if the motion falls away, the point I'm making, don't interrupt whilst I'm speaking, sir. Take your seat. Take your seat. Because if you do so, you are simply exacerbating a problem you yourself acknowledge is wrong. You only do it because you assume it's been done before. That's unacceptable, and we will not accept it. If there are any objections, sorry.
Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Member.
Speaker, you noted me first.
I'll give you a chance, Honourable Member. I said take your seat because you were interrupting me. That's what I said. So take your seat. I'll allow you to speak. Yes, Honourable Member. Chief Whip.
Honourable Deputy Speaker. The Constitution does not allow anybody to be discriminated on account of the dress or the color or the language or the religion. Therefore, that motion does not only fall off, but it must be expunged from the records of the House.
Yes, Honourable Member.
That motsamaisa kgotla ke bona tota gore o tlhakane tlhogo le seme segolo sa ANC le sona se tlhakane tlhogo. Moletsa o re o fitisang fa re quota se me Mokonyane a neng a se bua.
Don't even begin to go back there. I ruled that you can't repeat anything said here that is offensive. No matter who says
offensive.
Dula fatshe ntate.
Me o rile o tla thibela o tla thusa president le ka dibulo. O riana.
Dula fatshe ntate.
Deputy Speaker, I think there's
no, you can't speak before you are given an opportunity to speak. Take your seat. Honourable Member, you won't speak. Take your seat. Yes, Honourable Member at the back. Yes.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I just want to check with you, Honourable Speaker. If we're not going to use the word BAM, which other word can we use in that regard? Which is the parliamentary word for the word BAM? Because BAM it's a correct word to use. I mean, which word can we not use?
Honourable members, I'm warning you that you are repeating offensive language. You have been told it's unparliamentary, and I'm asking you to withdraw that.
Honourable Speaker, but I'm putting to you, sorry, Deputy Speaker, it's buttocks parliamentary. Can we use buttocks?
Honourable Member, you are an adult. I wish to appeal to you to realize that every time you use this and you refuse to withdraw it, I'm going to throw you out of the House. Yes, Honourable Members, you are out of order. I'm saying that you must withdraw it, Honourable Member. Please do that. Withdraw the words I said you must withdraw. You heard me. Honourable Member, take your stand there. Take your stand there. And you withdraw the words you used. You know them.
Which one?
I'm not going to repeat that language. You repeat them. You withdraw the words, Honourable Member.
Okay, BAM. I withdraw BAM. I use buttocks.
Honourable Member, withdraw that language, please.
Which one should I use?
Withdraw the language you are using even now. Both of them. You withdraw both words in the meeting here.
Which word should I use? No, I withdraw. But I want you to come back to me. Which word should I use?
Take your seat. Take your seat, you withdrawn. Take your seat, Honourable Member. Yes, Honourable Member, let's proceed with the business of the House.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. That's better. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House note that on the 19th of February 2016, an ANC councillor as well as another member of the community were arrested in connection with the illegal sale of housing stands in Embelentle in the Governor-Mbeki municipality in Mpumalanga. Acknowledge that for too long, the rights of our communities have been violated as the result of corruption, which affects the poor and the vulnerable the most. Commend the actions of the Hawks and the Secunda Crime Intelligence, which resulted in these arrests. call on the Minister of Human Settlements to strengthen the oversight role of her department in the provision of housing opportunities through the careful monitoring and implementation of credible waiting lists so as to curb this unacceptable corruption. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion.
The ANC objects to this one. Thank you.
Motion falls away. Honorable Minister of Defense, you wanted to say something?
No, Chair.
Thank you.
I just think that it is unfair that if you are not rude, if you are not going to be disruptive, then you will not be recognized in the House. I don't have to be disruptive and stand even before you appointed me and allowed me to speak or not for me to be recognized in the House. I had my hand up right from the beginning because one of the things I wanted to correct is the fact that the matter which the Honorable across there raised was a matter, in fact, which had not arisen here in the House. Whoever mentioned the word that he is referring to was a matter which was brought into the House, but in fact, which was never raised in the matter by the minister concerned. So it is incorrect to even suggest that they will not repeat a wrong by saying a wrong because there was nothing of that sort which was said in this House. I think it is incorrect, and I really believe, honestly, with all sincerity, that the honorable member should withdraw. We can't use this kind of language in Parliament, in the National Assembly, and behave as though we are kindergarten kids.
Thank you.
That which you have said. That which you have said.
Honorable members, Honorable Minister, thank you very much. She has actually withdrawn. It's okay.
I don't think we can continue to deal with people who are as rude as the ones who are sitting
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
and call them honorable members
Thank you,
because
Honorable
they are
Minister.
not honorable.
Thank you. Honorable members, please, let's be orderly now. Let's be orderly. Honorable Kubisa? No, Honorable Kubisa, please take your seat. I think I have been unfair. There's a member at the back there that I've been ignoring. Yes, go ahead, Honorable Member. You'll get a chance, Honorable Member.
Deputy Speaker. I rise on behalf of EFF to move without notice that the House knows that all learners from grade R to grade 12 at Daulume village in Bolobedu under Greater Aldoa municipality have not attended school since schools opened in January 2016. Further knows that there was a total shutdown of the village by angry parents who want the introduction of grade 10 at Rasirumo Secondary School because their children are walking long distances to and from school. Acknowledges that grade 10, 11, and 12 attend school at Rama Secondary School and Mbapata Secondary School, which are very far from Daulume village. Further acknowledges that learners who attend school at Rama Secondary School have to walk 19 kilometers to and from school, whilst learners at Mbapata Secondary School walk about 15 kilometers to and from school. Further knows that one parent, Mutlazo Emily Masitla, said that her daughter, Jigeleji Machete, a 16-year-old grade 10 learner at Rama Secondary School, was nearly raped last year while walking from school. Further acknowledges that Rasirumo Secondary School started having a grade 8 in 2014, and grade 9 was introduced in 2015 with only 3 educators. Knows that the school has 10 classrooms and only 2 are utilized. 8 of them are now just white elephants. Calls the Minister of Basic Education to intervene and save our children from the dangers of having the walk long distances to and from school. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put a motion. No objections, agreed to. Honorable Kubisa, sorry.
Deputy Speaker, on behalf of the NFP.
Sorry, Honorable Mutseha.
How? I come from that area. It's my constituency.
What are you raising on, Honorable Member?
I object. I object.
Okay. Honorable Kubisa. Order, honorable members, order.
Deputy Speaker, on behalf of the NFP, I move without notice that this
Point
House...
of order.
What's your point of order, Honorable Member?
Honorable Deputy Speaker, Honorable Mochecha is a great niece of.
What are you raising on, Honorable Member?
I'm coming to a
No preambles and stories here.
Okay, my point of order is what Honorable Mochecha is wearing is a traditional dress from Queen Mujaji. So
sit down, Honorable Member. That's not a point of order. You're
whoever is
wasting
ridiculing
time.
that dress
Sit
is
down.
out of order.
You are out of order. Sit down, Honorable Member. Go ahead, Honorable Kubisa.
Deputy Speaker, I move without notice that this House notes that the Passenger Rail Agents of South Africa has reportedly paid 37 million in the past 3 years to employees who have been suspended on a full-time pending disciplinary action. And also notes that South Africa is in the midst of economic crisis where all unnecessary and wasteful expenditure by the state entities must be scrutinized very closely, and all state institutions have been urged to implement cost-cutting measures. Finally notes that the standard guidelines for disciplinary action requires that suspensions must be dealt with and concluded within a reasonable time, and ideally within 3 months. Wherefore, we call upon this Honorable House to convey its displeasure at the long delays in finalizing disciplinary actions at PRASA and the resultant fruitless and wasteful expenditure that flows from these delays, and calls upon the management of PRASA to get its house in order and make every effort possible to finalize all outstanding disciplinary processes without any further delay. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections agreed to. Honorable Likota.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I move without notice that the House notes that on the 27th and the 28th of February, the Cancer Association of South Africa will be hosting the 13th Cancer Shavaton in shopping centers across the country. 2, that business and various workplaces will be supporting Cancer's 13th Shavaton from the 29th of February to the 4th of March. Thirdly, that further notes that cancer is a life-threatening disease which affects millions of South Africans, men and women, young and old, rich and poor. Fourthly, that with more than 200 different kinds of cancer, it affects the lives of 1 in 4 South Africans, with more than 80,000 dying from the disease each year. Fifthly, recognizes that cancer is one of the largest funders of cancer research in South Africa, facilitating care and support to those who are diagnosed as well as their families. Sixthly, acknowledges that everyone who knows someone who has been touched by cancer, acknowledges that everyone knows someone who has been touched by cancer, calls on South Africans and members of this House to show solidarity by shaving off their hair or coloring their hair. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. No objections agreed to. Yes, Honorable Member.
Ndiko libuwa muthusa dzomo la parliament ndiko ima ndiko dzinginya ndoimela lihoro la economic freedom fighters ndikidzinginya khandu ino ndisongo disa ndivadzo ya uri hange Limpopo una masipala wa chitiriki wa Vhembe una hoyo masipala ukolangiwa nga ANC. Masipala hoyo wo wa dzitshumelo dzoṱhe dzine nga nṱhani ya vhuaḓa a hu tshena na tshithu na tshithu tshino kutshimbila. Masipala hoyu uko balelwa no isa maḓi a u nwa kha vhathu no lugisa dzi storage zwino zwa vha tshidziki tsha dzi pfanelo dza vhathu u ya nga ndayotewa yashu. And hoyu masipala na PMT ine i vhukati no khakhamujana na masheleni vha tshi appointa kana vha tshi hira dzi security companies vha songo tevhelela the procurement procedures. Hoyu masipala wowa khasi la masheleni hune ba ANC ari divindinga mini basa rumi bo minister ba kokta uri vaye ba jenise mulayo wa ndayatewa wa 101A or B uri hoyu masipala uveiwa kha ndango ya muvhuso wa vhukati futhi dzibada dzoṱhe dzine dzavha dzi khou ya kha dzi kiliniki dza mahayani dzo vhaisala nga nḓila ine goloi dzine dza nga tshimbila ndi dzine dzo no pfhi dzi 4x4 sa ngei gombani futhi ri dovha ra ri hafha hune havha na dzi kiliniki dza mahayani ahuna ambulance na nthihi ine yavha i hone ine ya nga thusa vhathu vho hanganeaho vho no kuya zwibadela zwino ri khou ri mimasipala heyi yoṱhe yene khou controlwa nga ANC Limpopo i a fhiwa tshelede yo no pfhi MIG ine yavha i yo thusa uri vha lugise dzibada hedzo dzi tshelede dzi khou shuma hezwo zwino ri khou humbela uri vha department ya treasury vha sedzuluse masheleni a MIG uri a khou lugisana zwe a rumelwa zwone no humbela futhi muphuresidennde uri vha sedzuluse uri special investigation unit tshe vha tshi rumela ngei vhembele tshi khou ita mini ngori ndi ṅwaha wa vhuraru zwino ri sa pfhi dzimvelelo vha khou balelwa na u badela vhashumi ṅwedzi wo fhela ndi khou dzinginya ndi khou takala ngori na muthusa president Vho Ramaphosa zwine ri khou amba ndi ṱhanzi yanga vha zwi ḓivha ndi khou dzinginya.
If there are no objections, I put the motion. Yes, honourable member.
Allow. The ANC objects. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Yes, honourable member.
Point of order.
Yes, what's the point of order?
I just want to get assistance. Is the member knowing exactly what she's objecting on?
Do you know the rules that you should not raise frivolous point of order? Take your seat. Go ahead, honourable member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise on behalf of the Democratic Alliance to move that we are approaching the 2016 local government elections at a time when the national fiscus is under considerable strain. At the same time, the African National Congress is under pressure to perform well to safeguard its ever more increasingly beleaguered hold on power. In addition, rumors have it that the ANC itself currently is suffering from severe budgetary constraints. Under such circumstances, the temptation to use public funds to pay for the party activities must be intense. Indeed, we have recently seen in the lead-up to the hotly contested by-elections in the Clockwe municipality that the ANC has succumbed to that temptation. It is desperate in its desperate attempts to convince voters not to throw in their lot with opposition parties which, to put it bluntly, are just more attractive to voters right now. Municipal vehicles and staff are openly contributing to the ruling party's campaign activities. Shame on them. Misappropriation of monies held in trust is criminal behavior at the best of times. When it is done under the guise of providing a better life for those who are being robbed, it becomes the most heinous and egregious of crimes. The Democratic Alliance is alert, observant, and determined to root out this evil. Be warned. I so move.
If there are no objections, I put the motion.
The ANC objects to that motion. The ayes corrupt to.
Yes, yes, honourable member.
I rise on behalf of the EFF to move without notice that the House notes that 28th of February will mark 38 years since the death of a towering figure of our national liberation movement, Robert Sobukwe, the former president of the PAC. Further notes that Sobukwe was founding NEC member of the ANC Youth League in 1944 and was together with A.P. Mda the brains behind 1949 program of action of the ANC, which among other things called for political and economic freedom for African people and expropriation of land without compensation. Acknowledges that after breaking from the ANC and forming the PAC in 1959, he led what could go down in history as a defining moment in the struggle for national liberation, the past boycott which resulted in the massacre of hundreds of black people in Sharpeville, Langa, and elsewhere in the country. Further acknowledges that because of the racist apartheid government was so afraid of his Africanist ideas that the white minority parliament passed the Sobukwe clause, empowering the then Justice Minister to prolong his sentence to an additional 6 years to the 3 which he served in Robben Island. Remember that he was kept incommunicado from the rest of the political prisoner, and it was even a crime to wave at him. Acknowledges that Sobukwe died a lonely and excruciating death as a result of cancer in 1978, and that ever since there have been suspicions about how he died, with many believing that he was poisoned by the apartheid regime. Calls on all prosecuting authority to investigate on how and who was responsible for Sobukwe's death. Further acknowledges that his legacy remains incomplete until all land has been restored to the indigenous South Africans who have seen the greatest crimes against humanity, genocide, colonization, and apartheid. Call upon government to make available his audio material and all his writing. Call upon the university community and government to rename Fort Hare University after Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe. I so move. Thank you.
There are no objections. I put the motion. No objections, agreed to. Honorable members, we now move to the next item on the order paper, member statements. Does any member of the ANC wish to make a statement? Go ahead, Honorable Member. Go ahead, Honorable Member. We are now on to statements, Honorable Members.
Sihlalo lapho ngaphambili. Sihlalo.
Kwenze njani mina?
Ubuza kamnandi uqondene noma qondana manje isigege nesinene. Ngicela ukhuze labantu bakho bangaphesheya. Ngicela ukhuze labantu bakho bangaphesheya. Ngoba uyabona njengoba sila abazama ukubheka amazwi abawakhipha emlonyeni nabo. Uyamuzwa futhi omunye usesuka ngaphetshe uzosukela la. Mxoshe nango.
Honorable Member, I'm not hearing what you are saying in the first place. You are not saying anything so far. So please take your seat.
Lalela-ke into engibona ukuthi kufanele niyenze manje lapho ngaphambili. Naningeke nisifunze ngama-dictionary o-English namaZulu. Manje na-ke ngicela nibe nayo ezothi mangikhuluma la uzwe ukuthi ngiqonda ukuthini.
Honorable Member, you have not said what you are saying. I must warn them about what
awungihloniphi mawusho njalo uthi awungizwa.
Madam, ngiyakuhlonipha okokuqala ukhuluma ungakhonjwanga.
Hayi
okokuqala nje asiqale lapha.
Abantu bakho baqala inkulumo la.
Honorable Khawula, okokuqala nje sokufanele ukuthi wazi ukuthi akwazi uma nje bose uyakukhuluma ukuthanda kwakho.
Ngibone ngabantu bakho kuqala.
Ulinde madam, ufanele ulinde sikhombe ukukhuluma lokho okukhulumayo.
Kade ngikhomba ungiphamisa ungangikhombi.
Hlala phansi ke ma.
Uzongikhomba manje.
Hlala phansi madam. Ngikunikeza ithuba ukuthi ukhulume awukhulumi.
Ngicela emva kwamanje nginikeza ithuba ngifuna ukukhuluma.
Hlala phansi mem.
Khathalele abantu bakho.
Hlala phansi.
Baqondene noma aqondane isigege nesinene.
Order in the house. Hlala phansi madam.
Honorable Deputy Speaker. Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Honorable Khawula. Honorable, sorry. Yes, Honorable Member.
Ngokukhulu ukuhlonipha.
Yebo.
Bengiphakamisa ukubili ngohloniphekileyo lihoxise legama lesigage lesinene. Ngokwesizulu into ejiyileyo le nethokoza.
Enzanga njalo ma nangu ucela ukuthi uhoxise lelo gama.
Eqinisweni isiZulu asitolikwa. Ungahamba lalela. Ungahamba uyoshona kuthi isiZulu asitolikwa. Angikwazi abona intamba isiZulu asitolikwa. Ungahamba uyoshona anywhere.
Honorable members, you are out of order. Honorable Khawula. Awusize sikwazi ukuqhubeka nomsebenzi wenu.
Uyabona kuyimanje usipho wakho usibu wakho nangu la. Uzonzani la? Uyamuzwa ukuthi uthini? Uyamuzwa ukuthi uthini emncane angaka hloniphe?
Honorable member, ngicela uhoxise amagama oceliwe ukuthi wahoxile.
Mana ke uyabona njengoba sila sihlukene. isiZulu asitolikwa nawe kunamagama ongathi mawasho lapho ngesixhosa uthi inhlamba akuyona inhlamba ungahamba yoshona akuyona inhlamba isigega nesinene kusho ukuthi umaqondana.
Honorable Member, ngicela uhlala phansi.
Ngiyabonga.
Ngicela uhlala phansi mina.
Ngiyabonga usuku oluhle.
Kubeka ma. I'm going to come back, honorable members, I'm going to come back on this matter. Ngoba kucacile ukuthi abantu baqasha ngesithupha basebenzisa ulimi elingamukelekile sizobuyela kuwena ma. Ngicela ukuthi ungakhohlwa ukuthi uma ucela ukuthi uyenze into ongayenzi uphula umthetho wendlu sokuphindela kuwe. Kubeka mina.
Ndolivuwa mzula chidulo ngachivenda riri linaka lichihoha limwe didingwe lichihohwa liri mavalanga akhuzuwa. Marapezi, I would like to indicate that the opening of the Deep Sloot police station on Friday 19 February 2016 demonstrates the seriousness of the ANC-led government's commitment to bringing police services closer to the people. As such, the ANC welcomes the opening of this newly built police station in support of the Frontline Service Delivery Program. A fleet of 21 police vans has since been handed over to the new Deep Sloot Station commander. The ANC is of the view that the community of Deep Sloot will not feel safer with the new police station will now feel safer with the new police station in place. It is going to bring much needed relief to the community as their complaints will be attended to timeously. The ANC views this project as a means aimed at further reducing levels of crime, as there is going to be more police visibility and more police focus on hotspot areas. The ANC calls upon the community of Deep Sloot to work with the police, as it is the only way to win the war against crime.
Honourable Member, your time has expired. DA.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, the coming month of March will mark the year anniversary that our country has been without an Inspector General of Intelligence. This is a complete disgrace and a derogation of our constitutional duty. This important position will require a South African citizen to provide civilian monitoring of the activities of the intelligence services of our country, as envisaged in Section 210B of the Constitution. The framers of the Constitution required the appointment to the Inspector General of Intelligence to be passed by 2/3 of the members of this House. This was done precisely to ensure that the nominee was a fit and proper person to perform the task and was seen as a non-partisan overseer of these sensitive services so vulnerable to political abuse and manipulation. The position has remained vacant for so long because the ANC insist on trying to foist the name of former ANC MP and secrecy bill apparatchik Mr. Cecil Burgess on this House, despite knowing that he will not meet the required threshold due to his imminent unsuitability for the role and his partisan executive-minded behaviour. When will this ANC government put the Constitution and integrity of this Parliament before the ego of one man and bring to the floor of this House a suitable candidate who we can appoint to start fulfilling this constitutional obligation? We challenge the ANC to stop bottling this matter and either bring Mr. Burgess's name to the floor of this Parliament where we can pass judgment on his suitability, or by the close of this first term to commence steps to find a new candidate.
Enkosi Speaker, kubhlungu ukwazi ukuba emva kweminyaka eyi-22 yenkululeko abahlali basenyuyanisweni ecofa imvaba kumasipala we-ANC intsika yethu badilizelwe izindlu zabo abazakhele ngokwabo emva kweminyaka behlala kule ndawo. Umyalelo wokuhlukunyezwa bakhutshwe kwezi zindlu bedilizelwa zona ukhutshwe yimeya nemaneja kamasipala besazi kakuhle ukuba ayikho semthethweni into yokususwa kwabantu sele behleli ngaphezulu kweentsuku ezimbini endaweni. Akhange kuphelele apho abantu bathunyelwe ngamapolisa ukuba bahlukunyezwe ngerubber bullets xa bebefuna ukwazi imbangi yalo mbhodama. abantu basenyanisweni abanakutya abanamanzi abanamayeza abantwana abanancwadi nazimpahla zokuya esikolweni yaye i-ANC ayikhathali ngabo. Minister weKogta van Rooyen, sifuna ukwazi ukuba uthini ngabantu, uyaziva na izililo zabantu abahluphekileyo okanye uva ezezityebi zona zibhatala izizumbulu zemali kwingxowa ye-ANC. Sele kuyiveki abantu bengatyi kodwa zange waya kubo. Baya kuyinikwa nini na imaterial yokwakha izindlu zabo kuba badilizelwe ngokungekho semthethweni. Minister, abantu bafuna impendulo. Enkosi.
ANC.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. The ANC wishes to express anger and shock at the murder of its councillor in Freedom Park, Soweto, in south of Johannesburg on Monday night. Councillor Dokowani, the Ward 109 ward councillor in Freedom Park, next to Eldorado Park, was gunned down by unknown assailants around 10 p.m. at the gate of his home. While details surrounding his murder are still sketchy at this stage, preliminary indications are that Councillor Dokowani was shot 4 times by unknown attackers. He died on his way to the Berekwana hospital and he was certified dead on arrival. We are angry at the senseless killing of one of our most dedicated and hard-working councillors in our region of Johannesburg South. Our hearts are with his wife and children. This is a tragic loss for his family, the ANC people of Soweto and Johannesburg. We call on the police to leave no stone unturned to ensure that these killers account for their callous act. We urge members of the community to work hard, hand in hand, with the police to ensure that those responsible are brought to book. We'd also like to express our deepest and most heartfelt condolences to his wife, children, and the entire Dokowani family. We urge ANC members in the Joburg Metro to vote for the party in their numbers to ensure that he did not die in vain. May his soul rest in peace and rise in glory. I thank you.
IFP.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. We are confronted with a worrisome situation as institutions across the country are burning. Now is the time when leadership must be provided from everybody who sees themselves as a leader.
Or herself.
We cannot allow a situation whereby protests become violent and destructive, and we reverse the gains that have been made at opening the doors of learning. It cannot be proper that laboratories and libraries and any other property is being banned in justification for whatever grievance we might have. 2 wrongs do not make a right. And if we continue in this fashion in the absence of leadership, this problem is going to persist and we're going to find ourselves degenerating into an unprecedented chaos and anarchy. It rests upon the shoulders of all of us in this house and well beyond the walls of this house, whatever organization, whatever position of leadership we occupy, to stand up and reject violence. Whilst concerns are legitimate, violence is not a response which should be accepted by any person. And finger pointing at this point in time will not help. It begins in this house taking ourselves seriously about the matters affecting students. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Ndixakane nento ke singathi lityala lamawele ukuzama uzi-ministers apha kuba i-higher education minister ayikho ne-deputy. I hope iyokwenza le nto ithethwa kanye ngu-Honourable Hlengwa. Sendithetha nawe ke ngokuba bekho. Uyabona Deputy Speaker bekhe sabhala incwadi singumbutho sibhala ngakumbi uMinister we-Education ngalunga nalento eyenzeka phana kwi-SEDA City Campus eGauteng le ifundisa abafundi abasuka kumakhaya ahlwempuzekileyo nahluphekileyo bafundisa i-bachelor's degree. Kudala ke lo mcimbi uqhubeka ufumanisa ukuthi lo myinge wabafundi abangama500 awanandawo okufunda kuba kaloku esikolo siyavalwa ngenxa yamatyala akadibene nawo. Kudala sisithi kuMinister makhaka ngenelele kulo mcimbi sibone ukuthi abafundi bona aba bazifumana bengenandlela ukufumana imfundo ukuthi umcimbi wawo siulungisa njani wala abanye abantu besaxhwithana ukuthi ngubani na ozakwazi ukuthi athenge isikolo okanye asithenge asenze lo nothanda amfunayo. Siyayicela ukuthi siphenduleke kuba lokhu le nto bango sifumanisa ukuthi azikho zonke iminister apha ufumanisa uba yilanto letyala lamayole kwasasaqhinga kwasasafaka ithwathwa akuzubakho abantu bosiphendula. Siyabulela.
ANC.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. 7.7 million rands opened in Lerume Northwest. The ANC government is committed to efficiency service delivery and to continue being a responsive government. We therefore wish to encourage residents of Lerume in the Moses Kotane municipality in the Northwest to protect the newly constructed 7.7 million tarred road built by the provincial government as part of the Sitsoko Sane program initiated by Premier Supra Mahumapilo. The 1.8 kilometer paved internally road was opened on Friday, 19th of February 2016. 25 people were employed during the construction of the road. The municipality has allocated 72.3 million for construction of internal roads and storm water projects for various villages as one of the key priorities of this financial year. We urge the community of Lerume not to vent their anger in destroying what the ANC government has done for them, no matter how angry they are. We call upon people to take ownership of the road, engage tribal authority and municipality to resolve any issue that may have. I thank you.
ACDP.
Deputy Speaker, the ACDP strongly condemns the ongoing violence and destruction of property during protests and strikes in our country, particularly at university campuses. While we understand and support the legitimate demands of students, such as free education and proper accommodation, we will never support the use of violence to highlight demands and settle disputes. It is disgraceful for university students to throw sewage in buildings, as happened in the University of Cape Town earlier this week. Sad to say, chemical engineering building is one of several that were targeted by the so-called Pooh Brigade. These are individuals who should be adding value to the university intelligentsia, but who have chosen rather to undermine their own dignity and the dignity of others. The ACDP further strongly condemns the behavior of student protesters who disrupted a student prayer gathering at the University of Free State. Authorities must not allow hooligans masquerading as students to turn legitimate concerns of students into a rebellion that even denies Christian students their constitutional right to pray and worship freely. We call on government, particularly the Minister of Intelligence, to get their operatives to do their work so that South Africa does not descend further into anarchy. We also call on churches to support prayer gatherings for peace at different campuses across the country and for all peace-loving South Africans of all race groups to stand together and expose and isolate the enemies of peace, unity, and inner land. Thank you.
Yeah. ANC.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Whip. The ANC commends an initiative led by the Department of Science and Technology of donating 4 mobile computer labs, with each consisting of 40 computers to non-government organization in Pilontle to assist 29 schools in Umkhayagude district in KwaZulu-Natal. This will help in improving the quality of education and eliminating the disparities, particularly in the area of mathematics, science, and technology and language development. The majority of schools in KwaZulu-Natal and other rural provinces lack access to computers left for learners. For this reason, the area Umkhanyagude was earmarked to benefit from the Impilontle computer-based learning initiative. Then mobile labs are expected to assist the learners to improve their mathematics science skills in a district where performance in this subject has traditionally been poor. We are confident that with technology and new teaching aids now available will improve in this district of KwaZulu-Natal. I thank you.
Deputy Speaker,
Order.
Swift justice for drunk drivers and those suspected of being on drugs can happen if substance testing is equally swift. It takes about 6 weeks to test for alcohol, when one test takes only 20 minutes. It takes on average 3 to 6 months to test for drugs, where one test takes between 1 to 2 days. Longer because, unlike alcohol, the analyst does not know which drug to look for. Turnaround time, therefore, is extremely slow. The health department's forensic chemistry laboratories cannot cope. Its Woodstock lab has a backlog of 3,200 cases outstanding, but is only able, with the current staff and technology, to clear 300 a year. The other 3 labs perform similarly. The consequences of this are devastating for families of drivers killed or maimed in accidents. They have to wait 6 months and more for insurance to be settled, and some are impoverished as a result. Health Minister Aaron Matsaleri declared recently that there, and I quote, "there are no medical posts being frozen in this country." But for 2 years, all forensic analyst posts have been, in fact, frozen. Do we need the National Health Insurance to fix this? No, we don't. What we need is to hire more analysts and to buy more machines. I thank you.
ANC.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The ANC, the African National Congress, congratulates the matric class of 2015, the biggest group to sit for the national certificate examination in our country's history. With a record of 799,306 learners writing matric exams last year.
Yes, Honourable Member, what are you raising on?
Sorry to disturb the Honourable Member, but I rise on a point of order. 2 honourable members, including a Deputy Minister, walked right across the member when she was delivering a motion. And I think they need to read the rules about doing that.
And be sent back for re-induction. Honourable members, don't do that again.
Thank you for protection.
Yeah, go ahead.
Among their commendable historical achievements, the class of 2015 recorded, Mamelan, the class of 2015 recorded the highest number of passes, the highest number of distinctions, and as well as the highest number of passes in science. While we have noted a decline in the overall pass percentage last year, we take comfort in the fact that more learners passed with university entrances than the previous years, with Gauteng leading the pack of this regard. This is also another confirmation that the policies of the ANC-led government are opening the doors of learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. As Ahang SA, we wish to table our concern with regard to the current situation of our education, starting with declaring our vision and mission as follows. The vision on education is to establish quality and equal education to all citizens in South Africa, empower a learner from childhood to adulthood in order to access lifelong learning through the capabilities, skills, and entrepreneurship towards improving their quality of life. The mission is to assist outstanding educators, attract students and the entire society to the profession of education. It will be of a good cause if learners could be grouped according to their capabilities, e.g. music and art and technology. The learner should be capacitated from grade R up to tertiary level. We also declare that the language of learning and teaching from grade R to grade 12 should be African languages, and English will be an additional subject. At the tertiary level, it will be the student's choice. According to the trends in international mathematics and science study, in the year 2014, South Africa obtained position 62 out of 63. Out of 63 countries that participated in international assessment, it scored below the benchmark. This is the indication that our education is in crisis.
Honorable Member, your time is in crisis. It's over. ANC.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker. As part of the National Youth Policy for 2015-2020, develop for all young people in our country, the Deputy Minister in the Presidency for Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, Honorable Butima Namela, interacted with youth from Philippi, Nyanga and Guguletu in Cape Town on Monday, the 22nd February 2016. The objective of the Imbizo was to highlight the dangers of substance abuse and other social ills affecting young people. The Imbizo also contributed in sharing knowledge about services provided by government to young people pertaining to further education and career choices, services that were provided from the NYDA, NSFAS, as well as the Department of Higher Education. Prior to the Imbizo, the Honorable Deputy Minister paid an unannounced visit to Umvula Primary School, where he handed over school shoes and bags to needy children. Subsequently, he paid a monitoring visit to the Siyakuyenza Substance Abuse Treatment Center, where he was briefed on challenges relating to shortage of resources, which deterred them from providing the best treatment to young people. Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I'd like to tell you a story about rubbish. You see, on Sunday, after 2 weeks wherein the Buffalo City Metro Municipality had failed to collect their rubbish, residents of the municipality started dumping hundreds of black bags filled with household rubbish outside municipal offices. The city is filthy. Rubbish blows in the main streets. Piles of uncollected rubbish mount up next to clinics and creches, attracting rats and other health risks. We are reliably informed that only 2 rubbish trucks out of a fleet of 26 are operational, and that the workers in the solid waste department have been on strike since last week over the non-issuing of uniforms. And the contractors working on the rubbish tips are paid intermittently or not at all, meaning these sites are deteriorating rapidly and becoming a major hazard to surrounding communities. For years, East London has been called slummies, and if you were to visit it today, it would truly live up to its nickname as a smelly, filthy rubbish tip of a city. The sad thing is, this is nothing new, and here I look at Honourable Faku. It is indicative of the lack of care the ANC has for our municipalities and our people. It is time we call an end to this rubbish government and put people in place who will do the job of cleaning up our municipalities. It is time the DA gets voted in to clean up the ANC's rubbish.
ANC.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Some good news. The ANC congratulates Ambassador Xavier Karim on his election as chairman of the dispute settlement body of the World Trade Organization General Council. This is a top WTO position. The General Council is the highest decision-making body of the WTO between ministerial conferences. Ambassador Karim received strong support from the World Trade Organization Africa Group. The existing practice is that the chairperson of the dispute settlement body becomes the chairperson of the General Council the following year. Ambassador Karim's election to this body in the WTO recognizes the important and influential role of South Africa in the WTO, but also reflects the high regard with which Ambassador Karim is held. This also underpins the multilateral trading system. I thank you.
Members, that concludes member statements. Are there any ministerial responses? Deputy Minister, Basic Education, Social Development, COCTA, Minister DTI, in that order. Honorable Manamela.
Deputy Speaker.
Presidency.
Deputy Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Member.
On a point of order, according to the rules, ministers should be given the first preference, then deputy ministers. Thank you.
Go ahead, Honorable Member. Sorry? Go ahead, Honorable Member.
Thank you very much, Honorable
The
Deputy
Minister is
Speaker.
here. The Minister is going to speak. There should be no dispute about that. You can go ahead, Honorable Member.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Deputy Speaker, I will respond to two of the motions. And firstly, to thank the Honorable Member Passon for raising the importance of the extraordinary achievement last year, where we've had 52,000 more learners who had passed matric than in the past. And what is very interesting about the results last year is 62,000 learners had been progressed. And from amongst them, 22,000 had passed. That is, these learners would otherwise have been unqualified or disqualified from sitting for the examination. The Northwest Province, for example, was able to achieve a pass rate of 59% for progress learners. And indeed, if the progress learners were not taken into the mainframe, the percentage pass would have increased by 4.1%. But we do believe that the wonderful achievement of last year was that learners who have the potential and who were receiving considerable support have the ability to succeed. I turn to the second motion, and that motion speaks about the importance of quality and equity and access. And indeed, we can celebrate the fact that 92% of every learner who has not been to school has had at least 1 year of preschool learning. That contributes very significantly to the quality of education. With regard to equity, what we can celebrate is last year, quintiles 1, 2, and 3, the poorest schools, had outdone quintiles 4 and 5 in terms of achieving distinctions. Slowly but surely, we are bridging the gap or narrowing the gap between the formal, historically advantaged schools and the poorer schools. And that says a lot about our commitment to quality education and access. I thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Social Development. Honorable Bukhupanizu.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. On the issue of drugs, I thought it was important that we thank the Honourable Member for raising the motion, but to also indicate that the President has established an inter-ministerial committee to actually look at everything relating to abuse of alcohol and illicit substances, which includes drugs. But to also say that it's important for all of us in the House to know that South Africa has a challenge of designer drugs, which are difficult to cure because nobody knows what the concoction is. Therefore, it would not really be fair to think that once we have the machines, the employees, we will be able to deal with the issue of drugs. That together, it's important that we actually ensure that our young people and South Africans at large don't even start to engage in drugs at all. And together we must move the message that says prevention is better than cure. Because our challenge of drugs, it's huge, and it's designer drugs that are not used anywhere in the world, which are concocted in our own kitchens. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Mapela from Cocta.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I'll respond to 3 questions that were raised in the House. Member statements. Number 1 is the condemn the killing of councillors and then pay our condolences to the councillor Togolwane and then his family from Freedom Park in Johannesburg, and call on the community and the people as a whole that killing, it's not the way to go, and or settling of whatever differences that we have. And we hope, therefore, that does not become an occurrence now and then when people have differences to see councillors being killed. On the issue of raised by the EFF member here around Nyanisweni in the Eastern Cape, around the evictions that took place, one will have to investigate the circumstances and the reasons. As we know that the ANC is a caring government, will not just willy-nilly evict people anyway, anyhow. However, there might be circumstances that might be there, and sometimes some of the circumstances, the invasion that are illegal, that you may find that are being encouraged by certain people. But once we have investigated the matter, we'll then respond to it in accordance. The last one is around the Buffalo seat. The honorable member states clearly that there is a strike going on. That is why the city is filthy. We just want to say to the people of Buffalo, we have been inconvenienced by labor withdrawal. And those things do happen from time to time. However, we do keep our cities clean as the ANC-led government. And therefore, by saying that ANC is a rubbish organization, ANC is a people's organization. By referring it as a rubbish organization, it means the people who are voting for the ANC are rubbish. Please, people of South Africa, watch out and ensure that in 2015 elections, you vote the ANC back into power. Thank you.
Honourable Minister.
Deputy Speaker, the election of Ambassador Karim in the WTO that was referred to by the Honourable Fubs is indeed something that's very important for us to recognise and to celebrate. The chair of the dispute settlement body is, by established practice in the WTO, elected the following year as chair of the General Council. In other words, our ambassador will this time next year be leading the most important decision-making body in the WTO for the year that lies ahead, and a year that will be a year of a ministerial conference. So this is tribute to the fact that South Africa has established credibility as a principal champion of the interests of developing countries, has strong support among the developing world, but is also seen as a credible player in the WTO by all members. And it's also a tribute to Ambassador Karim, and I want to extend my congratulations to him and best wishes for him serving in these very important positions in the 2 years ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Manamela.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Firstly, we would like to appreciate the motion around the imbizo which we had on Monday in Crossroads. And just to indicate that part of that imbizo was to deal with frontline service delivery and monitoring, where we went to Mvula Primary School and also to Sivukile Center. And there were challenges which were raised, particularly at the school, issues around overcrowding, issues around textbooks. All of those issues, we will be raising them with the relevant authorities in the provincial education department so that they get to follow up, including infrastructure development, and also to emphasize that the fight against drugs and substance abuse, as indicated by the Deputy Minister of Social Development, was one of the key messages which we believe is what we need to engage young people on. We also want to agree with Honourable Meshwe and Honourable Hlengwa that we should collectively condemn the burning of campuses during protest. We do not think that burning property when we have issues to raise is the solution, and also the question of violence as raised, and that this government would obviously be ensuring that we deal with those issues. But I also want to call on campus management, vice-chancellors, to ensure that they deal with challenges that students raise in an open and democratic fashion, and in the same vein call on students to desist from the temptation of resorting to violence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. That concludes ministerial responses. The Secretary will read the first order.
Consideration of request for approval by Parliament of International Convention on Liability and Compensation for Damage in Connection with Hazardous and Noxious Substances by Sea, 2010, HNS Convention, in terms of Section 231, Sub 2 of Constitution.
Are there any objections to the approval by Parliament of International Convention on Liability and Compensation for Damage in Connection with Hazardous Noxious Substances by Sea, 2010, as it appears in the order paper? Yes, Honourable Member.
Yes, the EFF is objecting, and they want to make a declaration.
If there are objections, I now put the question. Those in favor will say aye. Those against, no. I think the ayes have it. If there is any, let me see. Okay, there seems to there are requests for declarations. Go ahead, honourable member.
No, thanks, Deputy Speaker. The EFF reject the request because of this HNS convention was adopted in 1996 to make it possible for up to $250 million to be paid out in compensation to the victim of accident involving HNS, such as chemicals. The convention introduced strict liability for the ship owners and a system of compulsory insurance and insurance certificate. A lack of rectification meant that the 1996 convention was failing to come into force, and as a result, a protocol was developed to address practical programs that had prevented many states from ratifying the original convention, hence the 2010 version. But we reject this because the South African has no capacity to enforce these protocols. Already, our oceans are a dumping ground for the toxic chemicals and a waste from the more developed countries. We have no capacity to even deal without our own companies that dump toxic chemical to the oceans and our ecosystem. This protocol and convention, important as they are, require a capable state that is able to define its vision and implement it without fear of bringing large companies to account. We therefore, as EFF, object the approval of this convention. I thank you.
Thank you. Any other body wants to do declaration? Nobody. Go ahead, honourable member. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairperson. ANC isekela this convention. The HNS convention was adopted by IMO in 1996 and subsequently amended by 2010 protocol. Its aims is to ensure adequate, prompt, effective compensation for damage to person and properties, cost of clean up and rehabilitation measures, and economic losses caused by the maritime transport of hazardous and noxious substances. HNS include bulk cargo and packages goods, e.g. gas, acid, industrial, alcohol, oil, active carbon, activated charcoal, etc. HNN Convention establishes a two-tier regime to provide compensation for loss or damage to person, property, and environment arising from the carriage of HNS by sea. HNS Convention is modeled against international liability Convention of IMO, such as Civil Liabilities Convention and International Convention, and on Oil Pollution Convention, of which South Africa is a party to. Understand as of which South Africa is a party to. HNS Convention established a two-tier regime. The first is ship owner liability. The second tier is receiver of HNS. So ANC isekela.
Thank you. Yes, honourable member.
Deputy Speaker, the International Convention on Liability and Compensation for Damage in connection with the carriage of hazardous and noxious substances by the sea of 1996, known as the NHS Convention, aims to ensure adequate, prompt, and effective compensation for damage to persons and property, costs of cleanup and reinstatement measures, and economic losses resulting from the maritime transport of hazardous and noxious substances. South Africa is on a major maritime route with thousands of tonnage of hazardous and noxious substances, passing through our territorial waters annually. In the event of maritime disaster involving a carrier of such substances, the cost to the environment and for cleaning up any spillage will have to be borne by the South African government in the absence of adequate insurance by the carrier owners. For this reason, Honorable Deputy Speaker, it is imperative that South Africa assents to the NHS Convention. Once the NHS Convention comes into effect, compensation will be available in the form of compulsory insurance taken out by the ship owners, who would be able to limit their liability. In those cases where the insurance does not cover an incident or insufficient to satisfy the claim, a second tier of compensation will be paid from a fund made up of contributions from the receivers of NHS. In conclusion, Honorable Speaker, the NFP supports this.
Thank you. Any further declaration? None. Members, are there any objections to the approval by Parliament of International Convention on Liability and Compensation for Damage in Connection with Hazardous Noxious Substances by Sea, 2010, as it appears in the order paper? Any objections? They are registered. Those in favor will say aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it.
Deputy Speaker?
Yes, ma'am.
Please put it on record. EFF has objected.
It will be put on record. Yes. The convention is agreed to. We will now take orders 2 and 4 together as they appear in the order paper. These are the reports of Committee on Public Accounts. Honorable Godi.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, comrades and honorable members. I present on behalf of SCOPA the committee's reports on the unauthorized expenditure of the Departments of Home Affairs, Transport and Water Affairs. The PFMA requires that when a department incurs unauthorized expenditure, SCOPA must investigate and submit to the House its report on how such should be processed to have it cleared from their books. Before bringing a report to this House, SCOPA receives a briefing note on each case from National Treasury, after which we call both National Treasury and the department to appear before us to have the issues exhaustively interrogated. So the reports before the House have been thoroughly engaged, and we request that the House adopt them as recommended. In the 3 cases, we have recommended that the unauthorized expenditures be approved as direct charges against the National Revenue Fund. We are satisfied that services were duly and properly rendered in all instances, that no individuals had unduly benefited from such expenditure, and also that control measures are in place to prevent recurrences of this nature. Having said that, the point does need to be emphasized that departments must at all times spend within their budgets in line with the PFMA's requirements for economy, efficiency, and effectiveness in public finance expenditure. I thank you.
I now recognize the Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, I move that the reports be adopted.
The motion is that the reports be adopted. Are there any objections to the first report of the public accounts on unauthorized expenditure? Yes, okay. I now put the question. Those in favor say aye. Those against,
Speaker,
no.
Speaker, the DA would like to make a declaration.
That's
please.
fine. You must allow me to finish first. Yes. I think the ayes have it. There being request for declarations, we will now give members an opportunity. Go ahead, Nat.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. And may I say from the outset that I'm disappointed that we first had the
condoning the irregular expenditure, and then that I had to have the opportunity to make a declaration. Chairperson, because noting the importance of the cost containment measures yesterday in the budget and the challenge of fiscal consolidation and also the challenge of bringing down the budget deficit from 3.2 to 3.1%, and we know we need to get it well below the 3%. It's quite important that we also note the Auditor General's outcomes in the 2014-15 unauthorised expenditures indicated in the Auditor General's report for all national government and public entities. And it's with regards to this that we note that there's a 25.6 billion in irregular expenditure, a whopping 25.6 billion. It is against this backdrop of 25.6 billion of irregular expenditure that Parliament must now today consider proposals to approve unauthorised expenditure of departments as indicated by Mr. Gordy, the chairperson of SCOPA. And this will be as a direct charge to the National Revenue Fund. Now, this will have an impact, of course, on taxpayers' monies. It will have an impact on the revenue of the country. And, of course, it will have an impact on the budget, as I've indicated. But firstly, Parliament must consider condoning now today the unauthorised expenditure of the Department of Home Affairs to the amount of 687 million and 99 million emanating from the years 2013 and 10-11. Parliament must also consider approving the irregular expenditure of this specific charge as a direct charge to the National Revenue Fund. We find in this department that we find shoddy work administratively and that the fiscus should not be taxed with a lack of implementing the necessary expenditure control in this department. The same principle, Deputy Speaker, applies to the Department of Water Affairs. In this case, the overexpenditure resulted from breaches in expenditure limits on research study, purchase of goods and services, and regional services council levies to the tune of 3.7 million. The DA does not approve of this direct charge against the National Revenue Fund. Now, also in the 28 and 29 and 2010, with regards to the Department of Transport, there was an overspend of bus subsidies and incurred unauthorised expenditure of 1.2 billion. Now, we've moved from the millions in terms of unauthorised expenditure to the billions. The National Treasury found that the Department of Transport failed to comply with Sections 38 and Section 39 of the PFMA. Government, in all good sense, cannot in good conscience expect Parliament to rubber stamp the charging of 1.2 billion of unauthorised expenditure to the pockets of South African taxpayers. Let us look at the amounts collectively. Irregular expenditure in Home Affairs is 687 million. Irregular expenditure in Departments of Water Affairs is 99 million. As I've indicated, irregular expenditure in transport is 3.7 million, and then a whopping 1.2 billion with regards to overspend that constituted irregular expenditure in the Department of Transport again. We will not condone the deficient financial management practices that place the economy on an unsound footing, and I cannot recommend that we approve the condoning these amounts in terms of irregular expenditure. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. The EFF rejects the recommendations on the reports of SCOPA on the unauthorised expenditure of the Department of Home Affairs, Water Affairs and Transport. We do so because we cannot sit here as Parliament and authorise this excessive abuse of state funds by unprincipled ANC officials and departments. For the Department of Transport, over 1.2 billion was unauthorised expenditure, and even though the department claims that these were eventually services that they benefited, this cannot be the excuse. By spending money without authorization, officials take money that should have been going to things that were planned for. It is robbing our people of the services they should be enjoying from the state. The Department of Water Affairs, about 3.8 million was wasted on unauthorized expenditure. This happens while we are having leaking taps, aging infrastructure, and the chronic inability of this department and municipalities to supply people clean quality water. The Department of Home Affairs is one of but the worst departments. Over the period of 10 years, this department has wasted over 9 million on wasteful and unauthorized expenditure. So much could have been done, but the ANC is only focusing on expanding their already big mikabas so that they can match the one of Kulubuse Zuma's one. We cannot seem to be condoning the ANC corruption. The EFF hereby rejects this report.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Speaker. I just want to, at the outset, say, when we're dealing with the unauthorized expenditure, we are not dealing with money that was stolen. It was just that the money was used in a manner in which they shouldn't have. And the purpose of the hearings is to then interrogate, and we have interrogated that as a committee. And the duty, in fact, rests with portfolio committees to consistently ensure that departments are adhering to their APPs. It is not incumbent on SCOPA to do that. But we have looked at this as a committee, and AG was there, the National Treasury was there, and the departments have explained themselves. But we must make the point, failing to plan is planning to fail. And departments must take action against officials who, for whatever reason or other, deviate the departments from their APPs. But the unauthorized expenditure that we are dealing with today, I'm quite surprised. Within the committee, there were no objections. We were all satisfied with the explanations.
Yes, what's the point of order?
Deputy
Yes.
Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Member.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, when we were handling these specific reports in the committee, I said, and he was not there that day when we were handling these reports, I said, I reserve my...
Honourable Member.
Wait, Deputy Speaker.
No,
Wait, I said, I
Honourable
reserve.
Member.
It's Rule 69.
This is not a committee. You can raise your objection,
No,
that's
but
fine.
he mustn't lie. He's telling, I'm coming
Honourable
to my...
Member, you can't say a member is lying.
But he's lying.
Honourable
I
Member.
want to come to... I want
No.
to tell you he's not telling the truth.
Honourable Member.
Because there's the chairperson, Honourable God.
Why,
Can
Honourable
attest to
Member,
that.
I said you can't say a member is lying.
But
Withdraw
he's still
that.
not telling the truth.
Withdraw
I said
that.
I will make my
Honourable Member.
submissions in the House.
Honourable Member, it's unparliamentary to say a member is lying. Withdraw it. Withdraw it, Honourable Member.
Comrade, you were not there that day.
Honourable
when we
Member,
handled this thing.
withdraw. Don't indulge in
What?
conversation here. That he's
Withdraw what?
lying.
That is lying.
You can't say that.
I
Yeah.
withdraw the word lying. He's telling not the truth.
Honourable Member, you must. Honourable Member, you can't do an unconditional withdrawal. So please behave and withdraw unconditionally.
I withdraw unconditional, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate that.
Honourable Deputy
We appreciate
Speaker.
that.
On a
Let the
point
mem-
of order, Deputy Speaker.
What are you raising on? Yes.
Are you okay? On a point of order, no, this one's the year to sleep.
No, no,
we
no,
are
no.
here to work.
Honourable Member.
Honourable Deputy Speaker.
Yes.
I know I'm playing with the sleeping time now because they want to sleep in that corner. He's not telling the truth. So how do I say it?
Honourable Member, don't spoil the day's work. You withdraw unconditionally or not. You must make a choice.
Honourable Speaker, I have already withdrawn.
Take your seat
so
then,
I'm
Honourable.
on another point of order.
No, take your seat. We don't allow it.
On what? Do I have the right to speak?
No.
On Rule 46, I have
No,
the
no,
right
no,
to
no,
speak.
no. Honourable Member, take your seat, please. Let the Honourable Member proceed with his stuff.
Honourable...
you have a political opportunity to engage this thing. You can't abuse a point of order for repeatedly doing the same thing even when you are advised not to do so by the chair.
Deputy Speaker.
Take your chair, Honourable Member. Yes, Honourable Member.
Can I address you?
Yes, Honourable Member.
On Rule 69.
Yes.
Can you open Rule 69?
Yes.
A member during the debate, when the facts are misquoted, he or she is allowed to explain.
Honourable Member, that's
That's
an
Rule
incorrect.
69.
No.
But also, Deputy Speaker, on a point of order.
Yeah. No, Honourable Member.
Deputy Speaker?
This is a wrong interpretation of that rule.
Yeah, Deputy
In fact, no. You are called upon to do so by the chair. You have not been called up. You or her were not called upon to do any explanation. Go ahead, Honourable Member.
Yeah, Deputy Speaker, I'm putting it to you that you are entertaining frivolous points of order, number one. Number two, the Honourable Flengwa did not refer to any political party. This is a debate and he's putting forward his points. Can you allow my member to continue, Deputy Speaker?
Now, members, look at what you are doing. You are wasting our time. I have ruled and you are telling me I'm entertaining frivolous point of order. You are ridiculous. I have to listen to members and make a ruling. Like I've listened to you, for example, just now, for wasting the House's time. Go ahead, Honorable Sengo.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, I really wanted to assist because listening is a skill, you know. And if you study the Hansard, and if the honourable member will, I said in the hearings, not in the committee. So I saw fundulalela nje singatatazeli. Secondly, unembeza nje vele ujwayele ukuthi umuntu umuhle. Yabona nje, I did not refer to any part, umuntu sedlo unembeza wakhe nje. So ke asikiyeke ke nonembeza wakho ke. So but Honorable Deputy Speaker, really I think it's important that we make the point as a committee that departments must learn to stick to their APPs. It must become a discipline which is not compromised, and run away from these shortcuts that they are doing. So, whilst we support this chair, because ayikho imali entshontshiwe la, ayikho imali edliwe. U-AG ufikile, u-National Treasurer ufikile, but departments must toe the line. Bayeke nabo kulo besifake inkingeni efana nale manje fanele sona defender nani nenzi into ezokubhayibhayiza nje singaziqondi kahle. Ngiyathokoza sekela somlomo.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, what is of concern to the Congress of the People is that we have seen a reoccurrence of overspending over the last couple of years. That is what unauthorized spending is overexpending. Agreeing to Scopa's recommendation seems to be seen as a license to continue the practice of unauthorized spending. Unauthorized spending, unless it was for a catastrophic, unforeseen circumstance, is nothing but bad planning. We stand on the podium year after year, condoning unauthorized expenditure, but there is no consequence management. How many people has been disciplined? Taking into account the budget speech 24 hours, 25 hours ago, we do not have the funds to continue this practice. Deputy Speaker, if a department ate their slice of a cake, why and for what good reason must a piece of another department's cake be taken away to be given to a department that already ate their piece of a cake? The bottom line is the departments can't plan and they should be sticking to a plan and to their budget. Treasury can rather divert the over 2 billion rand to university fees or to drought relief. COPE calls on Scopa to be more like pit bull terriers and not to let go of these departments without consequences to their actions. We cannot support this. I thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, honourable members of the House. The submission of the National Freedom Party on the Scopa reports tabled today regarding unauthorized expenditure in the Departments of Home Affairs, Water and Transport is substantially the same. Until such time there are real consequences for unauthorized and fruitless expenditure, we will sit with this problem forever. Honourable Deputy Speaker, several of our state departments are riddled with incompetence and mismanagement. The root cause of the sorry state of affairs, in our opinion, is the lack of suitable candidates employed in senior and executive positions. We have on paper well-drafted processes for financial management, and if these processes are adhered to and implemented as they should, then we will not have to sit here and authorize expenses which could otherwise have been directed at service delivery or free education for our students at tertiary institutions. We believe that if there are effective mechanisms in place to hold those accountable who are allowing these unauthorized expenses to occur, then we will see a significant drop in such unauthorized expenses. However, the biggest problem, Honourable Speaker, Deputy Speaker, is that Parliament has no teeth to ensure compliance with our recommendations. We go on oversight visits, we draft reports, we deliberate in committees, and we make recommendations. We don't, however, have any mechanism to follow up and enforce compliance with our recommendation. That is left to the defaulting departments. The scenario keeps on repeating itself year after year. We keep on expressing displeasure and we keep on asking for compliance, but it just does not happen. The question is, why? The answer, as I have said right in the beginning, is that until such time as there are real consequences for unauthorized and fruitless expenditure, we will sit with this problem forever. Parliament needs to be empowered to ensure compliance and accountability if we are to win this war on unauthorized expenditure. In conclusion, the National Freedom Party supports the report with reservations. I thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Member.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Let me first clarify the position of the ANC. The ANC does not condone unauthorized expenditure. But in this case, the ANC condones these specific cases because the services were rendered. Secondly, no one personally benefited for the expenditure. Thirdly, controls and systems are now in place to prevent further occurrences of these cases in the Department of Home Affairs. So, in condoning the unauthorized expenditure, all due processes were followed according to the PFMA and Treasury rules. We therefore think that therefore we can condone this. Looking at what has been said before by other parties, fruitless expenditure is totally different from unauthorized expenditure. Fruitless expenditure is where services were not rendered for purposes that they were budgeted for. So let us not be confused. Let us be clear. Unauthorized expenditure is where you exceed the amount that was intended. You may exceed it by R1, you may exceed it by 10 rands, you can exceed it by 100,000 rands, but it is exceeding the amount that was budgeted for. The internal audit is in place, the audit committee is in place, an experienced and qualified chief financial officer has been employed, and therefore we are satisfied that this is never going to occur again in Home Affairs, and therefore we condone the expenditure. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Members, I now put the question again. Those in favour will say aye for the first one. Those against, no. I think the ayes have it.
Chairperson?
Yes, Honourable Waters.
Would you please note the objection of the DA?
We will. We will.
And the objection of the EFF.
We will.
And the
note.
objection of the Congress of the People, please.
Okay. We will note those objections. Thank you. Agreed to. Okay. The second committee on the Department of Water Affairs, I now put the question. Those in favour will say aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it.
Deputy Speaker, please note the objection of the DA. Thank you.
The DA, EFF. Okay. Thank you. Agreed to. The third report on the Department of Transport. I now put the question. Those in favor will say aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it.
Deputy Speaker, I think
no.
the nays do have it, but please note the objection of the DA. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Yes, honourable member.
Note the objection of the EFF.
Yes, I'll note the objection of the EFF. Thank you. All right, agreed to. The fifth to the sixth order of the day. We will now take orders number 5 and 6. Can't be 5 to 6. 5 and 6 together, as they appear in the order paper. They are oversight reports of Committee on Public Accounts. Honourable Godi.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, comrades and honorable members. I suppose these two reports are less controversial, very straightforward in terms of the background, the objectives, as well as the recommendations. Safe to say that these oversight visits were undertaken after we had hearings with the departments here in Parliament. In the Department of Home Affairs, our main interest was the fact that a policy of decentralization had been established, and that the findings of the AG, the negative findings, were as a result of weaknesses in the regions, and we wanted to go and see for ourselves how they were operating. We went to the Eastern Cape, in Tata, in Qumbu, in KZN, Ladysmith, Dukuza Satellite Office, as well as the Peter Marisbeck Regional Office. And what we noted is that decentralization is a good policy in itself, but there is need for infrastructure, proper infrastructure to ensure proper service delivery. There is need for capacitation in terms of personnel and also in terms of skills, as well as IT connectivity, especially in the rural areas. As far as the Correctional Service Department is concerned, I must say, comrades, that it is a department which in the last 7 months, we had met about 5 times over and above this oversight visit, because we had decided that we are not going to leave this department until all the weaknesses that were outlined in that report are addressed. And I think those who are in the Portfolio Committee of Public Service and Administration yesterday would have found that in the top 5 poorly performing departments, correctional services is number 1. And this coming week, Tuesday, we have called them again as part of a process of ensuring that we are with them and we ensure that the weaknesses are addressed, especially around internal weakness, internal control, the problems of non-compliance, the issue of IT, uncompleted projects, as well as human resources. In our interaction, in our visit to these prisons, as well as our meeting with the national leadership of the department, the challenges that were identified in all our hearings were all reconfirmed. And comrades will recall that in the last week before we went on recess, we had a marathon hearing with them here in Parliament from 9 until around 6 in the afternoon, but still we could not exhaustively discuss the challenges that are there. Hence, our hope that next week Tuesday will bring closure to some of the issues that we see, and we believe that this report will be one of those instruments that can be used to correct the weaknesses that are there. We do want to recommend that the reports be adopted as presented. I thank you.
The Honourable Chief Whip.
Honourable Deputy House Chair, I move that the reports be adopted.
The motion is that the reports be adopted. Are there any objections to the reports on the Committee of Public Accounts on oversight, visit to the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal provincial offices of the Department of Home Affairs? Yes, Honourable Member.
Yes, Deputy Speaker, and we request to make a declaration.
Okay. Honourable members, declarations having been requested, I'll give an opportunity for members to do so.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. On both these oversight visits, I was not there, hence I was on maternity leave at the time. But I have read the reports, Deputy Speaker, and it's safe to say in both of these departments there is clearly a lack of leadership. Because what we have seen, I will start on the one of correctional services, Deputy Speaker. In these departments, officials are colluding with inmates to smuggle in drugs, alcohol, women into service centers. There's no proper working surveillance to monitor movement. The ICT centers is both outdated in correctional services and in Home Affairs, Deputy Speaker. Personnel do not log off workstations, hence sensitive information is vulnerable to being tampered with. Record keeping does not exist. And even on one at the at the Correctional Services Center, Deputy Speaker, one official was smelling alcohol. So if we will come here and just handle these departments with soft glove, Deputy Speaker, these recommendations that we are putting to the House will unfortunately not be sorted out. As I was saying before, in the department, we should not handle departments with soft gloves when they are coming to us. Recommendations shouldn't be put to the House that these things are sorted out, because it's not sorted out, and it will never be sorted out until in 2016, when we come to local government elections, we make sure we vote out the lazy agency out of power. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
If there's no other, Honorable Hlengwa.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, there is a serious problem at correctional services, and we really want to put it to the Portfolio Committee on Correctional Services to jack up. We cannot possibly find ourselves having to do the work of a Portfolio Committee. We have met with this department at least 3 or 4 times, and there is very, very little movement that is taking place there. And the issues of internal control, IT, and everything in between is just, unsatisfactory to say the very least. And SCOPA is not there to replace portfolio committees who in themselves want to convert themselves into being the department. You are not there to befriend the department. And then at the end of it all, these reports come to SCOPA. What is going on in terms of in-year reporting? Because you make it very difficult for SCOPA to do its work when it has to do your work as well. So we are really making a plea, Honorable Deputy Speaker, for portfolio committees to assist us in making sure that they do their work. Because if they don't do their work, then we must do their work for them. And we are calling that for the department in itself to respond positively to assistance and guidance that it is being given, because we are not intervening in these matters with a view to demonize somebody, to bring somebody down. It is a genuine assistance, but there is a high level of resistance to accept what we are bringing forward as an assistance. And there is very little, you're getting different stories every time. You put the same question and you're getting a different response. And it speaks to a shortcoming in systems and in operations. The other major issue is that of consultants. Millions and millions of rands have been spent on consultants, but there's been no skills transfer. The contractors have come to an end of their term, and there's been no skills. But we have paid a lot of money, and we really believe that money should be spent on upskilling employees of the department and not to be lining the pockets of consultants, because that in itself is something which amounts to wasteful expenditure if there is no skills transfer. So the recommendations that we've put forward here, we expect the Portfolio Committee to assist us in making sure that they are implemented and to ensure that the work gets done. So I would really want all of us in this house to adopt correctional services because it has become a problem child. I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Member.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. The National Freedom Party supports the SCOPA reports on oversight visits to the regional offices of the Department of Home Affairs and the prison visits in Gauteng. The reports consistently point to major areas of concern in all cases, the most important being the inadequacy of existing IT systems, slack financial management, and less than satisfactory human resource capacitation. These problematic areas must be given urgent attention, and the exhaustive list of recommendations reflected in the report ought to be implemented without delay to rectify the multiple shortcomings which have been identified. An analysis of the SCOPA reports once again highlights a very serious weakness in our management, and that is the lack of accountability. The recommendations made to the Department of Correctional Services by the Auditor General, as well as the recommendations made by SCOPA in the past, have repeatedly been ignored, and the question is why? The reason is because there is no accountability. While it may not be the responsibility of SCOPA to follow up and ensure progress and change is made, it must be in a position to be able to recommend that departments and portfolio committees take decisive action in ensuring that these matters are resolved. The National Freedom Party supports. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The main reason why SCOPA visited the Department of Correctional Services is because they are the habitual offenders in the Public Accounts Committee's sphere of government. They have appeared before the Public Accounts Committee a record 21 years in a row to account for their miscreancy when it comes to public finances. And so we visited them, and what a mess it indeed was. When we arrived at the main building in Pretoria, we went into the server room, a lovely room with great big boxes with flashing lights, with a big sign on the door that says, "Keep the door closed." When I asked the Commissioner whether that room was quite important and why the server room should be kept secure, he said, yes, very important. All records would be lost if that room was attacked. Then I asked him why there was no lock in the door. And that is the fundamental of the Department of Correctional Services. They simply cannot get it right. They are like a deer in the headlights. When you meet with them and you explain the problems, they endeavour to fix them, but like the proverbial lock in the door, they simply cannot close the gap. When it comes to the Department of Home Affairs, we visited various branches of Home Affairs in the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal. The scenes were frankly shocking. In Mthatha, files belonging to our citizens were found in the same room where cleaning materials were. In Kumbu, just outside Mthatha, a room was found piled high with files simply strewn across the room. The record keeping in Home Affairs in those particular branches that we visited was absolutely shocking. These are the identities of our people. This is their existence. Is this freedom, fairness and opportunity in South Africa, where you are born and your entire existence, everybody you are, is just thrown on the floor in some far gone office? You don't exist anymore. This is the level of absolute misconduct and financial miscreancy that's going on in the Department of Home Affairs. This is exactly why we opposed the unauthorized expenditure in that department. We support these oversight reports because they laid bare many of the shocking conditions in these departments. So therefore, we will not be supporting the report. Thank you, Speaker.
Are there any further declarations? The ANC.
Thank you, House Chair. House Chair, let me just indicate one simple thing. That as a team, we went out, that is to do this oversight. And some parties, unfortunately, they were not there. And we made these recommendations because as the ANC, we are conscious of the fact that we are not going to allow anybody, be it an official in the department or whoever, to transgress the law. We clearly indicated that there are provisions in the PFMA And anybody who transgresses the law as the ANC, we are definitely going to deal with that individual. We then looked at the situation in both the areas that we visited. Yes, it is true that we discovered that the things are not normal, and hence our recommendation. But what is very important is I would urge members of this House that if you were not involved in a meeting or involved in any discussion, please don't come here and mislead. That is the House. Because reading from the report without you internalizing that is what happened, you would be giving a wrong picture. And some of us who were there, we know exactly what happened. And hence we are coming up, that is with these recommendations. I'm urging everybody here. For instance, if you look at what happened during the past few days, we had the president here giving a very nice and hope speech that is to the country and the nation. The Minister of Finance did the same thing. And I would expect that members of this House would follow in that footsteps, rather than coming here and saying negative things that is about that.
On a point of order, House Chair.
What is the point of order? Take your seat, Honourable Member.
House Chair, I just want to indicate that there is nothing good that comes out of Zupta.
That is not a point of order.
Nothing.
Take your seat, Honourable
So
Member.
don't make us believe the statement.
Take your seat, Honourable Member. Continue, Honourable Member.
Thank you, House Chair.
On a point of order,
What is your point of order, Honourable Member?
I'm rising on Rule 44
What is the point of order?
on freedom of speech and debate. Chairperson, the honourable member made earlier on that members shouldn't come when they were not part of any trip or anything, then they can't come to the House. But according to the rules, we have freedom of speech, we can do that, and it's not up for him to come and say that we can't take part in any debate if you didn't make it to do that particular trip. I request your indulgence in that, Speaker, and ask him to withdraw that statement.
No, honourable members, let me just state it very clearly that any item on the order paper that appears in front of the National Assemblies for debate, it's not a prerequisite for members to have been part of all those presses. And similarly, it's also the view of the honourable member, and he's quite entitled to express his view. You may continue, honourable member.
Thank you. That is House Chair. House Chair, all what I was saying, that is as the African National Congress, is that we are urging everybody in the country, in the world, to please rally behind the good hope speech that the President and the Minister of Finance that is made in this podium. That would take our country somewhere. We are saying, I think we owe it to all of us, or to ourselves, that we are all South Africans. Whether we belong to whatever party, this is our country. We must make it work. With those few words, I would then say, as the African National Congress, we support, that is, this report. And we've made a commitment.
Thank you, honourable member. Your time is now expired. Are there any further declarations? No further declarations. I now recognize the Honourable Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
I move that the two reports be adopted.
The motion is that the reports be adopted. Are there any objections to the report of the Committee on Public Accounts on oversight visit to the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal Provincial Offices of Department of Home Affairs? There are objections. I put the question. Those in favour will say aye, and those against will say no. I think the ayes have it.
Can you please record the objection of EFF?
The objection of the EFF will be recorded. Are there any objections to the report of the Committee on Public Accounts on the oversight visit to Johannesburg and Gqochi Mampuru Correctional Centres? No objections. Agreed to. Honourable members, we now come to a debate an important matter that is on the order paper, which permission has been granted by the Speaker, as a debate on matter of public importance in terms of Rule 103. It's an important debate given the challenges that the country is facing in this regard, and that's why the Speaker has agreed to it. We have been informed by the Honourable Chief Whip of the official opposition that originally moved the request for the debate that the Honourable Annette Steyn will be participating in the debate on his behalf. I now recognize the Honourable Annette Steyn.
Thank you, Chairperson, and I also want to thank the Speaker for agreeing to this debate. I'm just disappointed that many of our ministers are not here today. It is quite clear that this is a government that lives in the suburbs. It has a distorted idea of reality, the distortion that comes from living in big government-funded houses with green lawns in big cities. Maybe that's why they're not here. This leads to a failure to understand how agriculture works and the foundation that agriculture provides the whole country with. The government is wrong. Maybe government believes some of its own tales. That belief doesn't make it okay or save South Africa from a threat that this government is running away from addressing. How is it running away? It is running away because it will not do what is necessary to save our people from the worst effects of this drought. It will not declare a national drought disaster, which should be the first step that needs to be taken. 7 provinces have been declared drought disaster areas. Only half of the districts of the Eastern Cape and the Western Cape have not been declared drought disaster areas. Government pretends this is enough to keep them from declaring a national disaster. They hope that people will not read the legislation that clearly says that when a disaster affects more than one province, it is a national disaster. The declaration of a national disaster is important because it will allow all government agencies and departments to be focused on alleviation measures. The Minister of Finance ran away when he failed to announce any significant additional funding for drought relief. Estimates show that immediate requirements of 4.2 billion rand is needed. If this issue is not dealt with, it will result in severe consequences for the availability and prices of food for all South Africans, and particularly poor households. Rising food prices will also mean that school feeding schemes will no longer be able to use their budgets to feed children, who will have even less food at home. And I'm sorry the Minister is not here to listen to this. A disaster declaration will give direction to the department to implement measures to cope with this. Government would be there to help. As it stands, our people will be left on their own. But the Minister says, we have had some rain in January, so the worst of the drought is over. This is far from the truth. The worst is still to come. It is predicted that we will only have proper rain in May. The effects of this drought are only just beginning. Speaker, hierdie droogte kan nie sommer ligtelik met vorige droogtes vergelyk word nie. Suid-Afrika is tans binne in die ergste droogte nog ooit in ons geskiedenis. Die Suid-Afrikaanse Weerbureau het 2015 as die droogtejaar nog ooit verklaar, wat volg op 3 jaar van lae abnormale reënval vanaf 2013, 2012, 2013 en 2014. Daarmee saam is Januarie 2016 internasionaal as die warmste Januarie maand nog ooit aangeteken en het dit alle rekords oortref. In hierdie abnormale, moeilike weeromstandighede probeer ons land se boere, groot en klein, elke dag 'n moeilike bestaan voer. Landbou word wêreldwyd as een van die onvoorspelbaarste bedrywe beskou en slegs mense met passie, uithou vermoë en baie geloof kan uithou en aanhou. We have not seen proper follow-up rains after January. Farmers took massive risk by planting late, and animals have not stopped dying in their droves because there is no feed. Some areas of the country have still yet to receive any rain. The impact of the drought on livestock has been catastrophic. There are still daily reports of dying animals. Farmers in many parts of the country have told me heartbreaking stories of animals being shot to be spared the fate of dying of thirst and hunger. Other farmers have sold pregnant animals or just let their animals roam freely in the hope of finding feed and water. Those farmers know they will never find their animals again, but they cannot bear to see them dying of hunger. The impact of this will linger for years. In most areas, the rain came too late to ensure adequate grazing through the winter months. The optimistic official crop estimates, which have contributed to this sense of unreality, the estimates were made earlier and said that we would get 7.4 million tonnes of maize, only 25% down from last year. Today, a new estimate came out that downgraded that now to 7.2 million tonnes. But Minister, go and look for yourselves what has been planted. Tell your blue light convoy to drive you into the maize growing areas, get out of your BMW and look closely at those risky plantings. Half of those seeds did not grow. They were scorched before they could grow. Those that did come up are short and stunted. They will not deliver much and may not even make it to a harvest. 2 days ago, a plane flew over the heart of our maize growing areas in the northwest and the Free State. They took these photographs. I will give it to you, Minister Zokwana. They will give you some understanding on the severity of the situation. So what does this mean to us? It means that the widespread hunger that is starting to face us if we do not act. The BFAP report says that the cost of the staple food basket increased by approximately 19% from January 2015 to January 2016, and they expect a further increase of 10% in this quarter. From November 2015 to January 2016, in 2 months, the cost of SAMP is up with 11%, spinach 82%, and potatoes 110%. This is only the beginning. Already 16.6% of South Africans have inadequate access to food, and 13.1% are experiencing hunger. Food prices are expected to keep on rising as we start eating imported food. This will get worse. How long before we see people in South Africa dying of hunger? Unprecedented quantities of maize and wheat will have to be imported. The scale of importation has never been attempted before. We will have to import between 7 and 10 million tonnes of basic food at a cost of 14 billion rand. It could even be worse, as I said, Minister, if you look at this. It will mean that a truck will have to leave the harbour every 5 minutes in order for us to import this food. Economists say our ports will not be able to cope. We cannot get to the point where we lose even 1 day in the food import pipeline. Government will need to recognise this as a threat and prepare parastatals now to handle far bigger exports than predicted by the early crop estimates. The state's ability to plan, prepare and assist need to be mobilised to deal with what is to come. A sense of urgency is needed, which was clearly missing from yesterday's budget speech. Despite primary agriculture's small share in the GDP, the severity of the current drought that implies that its importance in the rest of the economy should also be considered. In the 1991-92 drought, agriculture shed 49,000 jobs and 20,000 other jobs. The latest Stats SA that came out today said already agriculture shed 37,000 jobs in the last quarter. Given this current situation, all of the money for the new agriculture that Minister Gordon talked about, almost none of it was new. It was part of a trick
Honourable
to
Member,
pretend
your time has
government
expired.
is attending to a crisis that in fact is ignoring.
The Honourable Minister of Water and Sanitation.
Thank you very much, Chair, honourable members. The groundbreaking decisions and commitments made by the world community at the COP21 in December 2015 in Paris to mitigate and adopt the devastating conditions of climate change are indicative of how the world has woken up to this phenomenon, and that South Africa is not an isolated country that is faced with the realities of climate change. In the State of the Nation address, His Excellency President Jacob Zuma alluded to the realities of climate change and its associated consequences of unprecedented high drought levels in South Africa and the world over. The challenges of drought besetting the country knows no politics, knows no color, cuts across various strata of society and communities, as well as sectors of the economy, and if not checked, could have far-reaching and devastating negative effect on nation-building, social cohesion, and unity of our people. As a nation, we have to deal with the drought challenges as a war waged against our people and their resources. We have to mobilize our wisdom and resolve to viciously confront the scourge of drought with a clear understanding that drought knows no politics, no color. In response to the preceding situation, institutional arrangements have been put in place to adequately deal with the coordination and oversight of the drought intervention. And prior to COP21, Minister Mulewa had actually started to convene a national government integrated ministerial team that was already dealing with the development of adaptation programs to deal with the realities of climate change. And therefore, what we are now dealing with in terms of mitigating interventions is based on that forward planning that starts as far back as 2 years ago. In addition, we have also been able to work with civil society, the private sector, and institutions of higher learning in the water sector, and hence what we now have as the Strategic Water Partnership Network that helps in dealing with these issues. And in this regard, honorable members, allow me to commend the hashtag Operation Hydrate. That is a civil society movement that has gone out to act in partnership with government in providing to those communities that are in dire need. On the interventions that we have made, government has made significant emergency interventions as well as short-term mitigation measures that are financed through the reprioritization processes. That includes the transfer schemes from systems that still have sufficient water, the refurbishment of existing boreholes. As we speak now, we have actually brought back 125 boreholes back into operation. We have drilled an additional 211 new boreholes, as well as rehabilitated 219 in some of the provinces that are highly dependent on groundwater, such as the Northwest and the province of the Free State. We have repaired critical infrastructure, working with our various water boards across the country. We have provided 471 motorized water tankers deployed, of which 97 are provided by the department and the remainder provided by municipalities and the water boards. In KwaZulu-Natal, 35 municipalities are affected, and capacity has been provided to both the municipalities as well as the districts that are affected. We've also made interventions on emergency water transfer projects from Uthugela to Umhlatuze catchment, from Utongati River to Hazelmere Dam, from Pambanyon emergency scheme for the South Coast, and the release of water from Jingwayo Dam, and as well as the deployment of additional engineers to struggling municipalities. Esesikwenza manje sebenzisana nabomasipala bonke bakwaZulu-Natal ukuhlanganisa imali zonke ama-grant abawathola kuhulumeni waphezulu uqinisekisa ukuthi inkinga ababhekene nazo sizama ukuthi sizicazulule ngokuhlanganela inkinga ababhekene nayo, futhi sicela futhi ukuthi sibonge namakhosi laphana kwaZulu-Natal ababe nezinga abalidlalayo ukuqinisekisa ukuthi empeleni esikwaziyo ukukhulumisana nomphakathi kuze kufikelele namhlanje, azange nje kube nezibhelu. Danki siyabonga kumakhosi akithi akwazile ukuthi nawo asebenzisane nathi. Eprovinsini yase-Free State, hona jwale re bua ka bomasepala ba le lesome le bone ba amilweng ke ona mathata a shebaneng le o sa beteng ha metsi. Hodima moo re se re kenelletse hore re nke metsi a tswang Katse Dam re thuse baduli ba Freistata haholo metrong wa rona wa Mangaung, mo re neng re tiiseditse hore le teng hape re hlabolla di-boreholes, re nka metsi a nang a feta fela Freistata fihlella Gauteng. Hona jwale ka se sebaka metsi a na sa finyella hore a tlo thusa le batho ba Free State ka hobane motho ke motho ka batho ba bang. profinsing ya Limpopo le teng re kenyeleditse water board ya rona ya Magalisi hore e kenelle mo ilo thusa province ya rona ya Limpopo hore e be le lenaneo le kopaneng le tla thusang hore bo masepala kaofela bao ba nang le bothata ba hore ba sebedise ditjhelete tsa bona hantle ba senang diplane tse kopaneng hore hammoho le bona le Magalisi water re tsebe ho kenella ka sena sebaka le mane modimo le re sebedisana le Deputy Minister Buti Manamela se re kentse di water tank teng mo ebile hona le dikopano tsentse di tshweru mo le setjhaba sa mane modimo le re leboha tshehetso ya hae Deputy Minister Buti Manamela la phane Mpumalanga sinabo masipala ba u6 ababhekene nayo lenkinga ekhona ama water tank ama borehole u15 nama storage tanks u225 sesiwafakile ukuthi abe yingxenye ukuthi asize abahlali baseMpumalanga sesikhulumisana futhi nabalimi labo abalima amahlathi ngoba siyazi ke ukuthi forestry yona imboni kakhulu ephumelela phambili lapha eMpumalanga ukuthi nabo abasebenzise inhlelo ezahlukile ze-irrigation ukuze sazi ukuthi songe amanzi futhi bakwazi ukuthi baqinisekise ukuthi basebenzisa amanzi angahlanzekanga lamanzi esiwabiza ukuthi i-grey water ephuma ku-sanitation nalapho siyababonga futhi abosomayini baseMpumalanga abasebekwazile ukuthi bageze lamanzi aphuma emamayini bawanikeze kwabanye omasipala abaseyinkingeni futhi babaxhase ngokuthi babanikeze onjiniyela njengoba sisebenzisana nomnyango weCocta ukuthi sibe naleli hlelo libizwa back to basics ngempela siyathokoza ukuthi ke osomashishini baseMpumalanga bakwazile ukuthi baxhase omasipala baseMpumalanga nalapho sithi thank you siyabonga eNorthern Cape sinabo masipala ba6 ababhekene lona abashe banini le mathatha athwana liyana re qadile o sietsa mani Northern Cape is to desalinate brackish and saline water from our boreholes as well as deal with the Fraserburg monitoring plan that helps us to plan and monitor the flow of water into those areas that are economically helping the province of the Northern Cape to survive. We've also been able to work together with the water board that serves the Northern Cape, which is the Sidibeng Water, in capacitating our municipalities. And as part of Back to Basics, the Northern Cape is also affected by the work that we are doing with regard to the 27 district municipalities that we have to capacitate and rehabilitate. What do we need to do as well? We are also investing on infrastructure, raising of our dam walls, now that our dams are empty, making sure that we build additional dams as well as reservoirs, raising community awareness, and working together with the other sectors, particularly the agricultural sector, the land and reform department, but most importantly, our research institutions that are also helping us to look at innovative solutions, such as alternative supply of feed that I'm sure Minister Zokwana can talk about. Over and above that, we have really embarked onto a process that helps us to reprioritize all the conditional grants that go directly to municipalities so that those conditional grants begin to make an impact in terms of municipalities being able to help and provide sustainable and good quality water. 122 water treatment plants have now been given over to the department to deal with them. Already the intervention in the Vaal River system has yielded good results. We are, as we move forward, and thanks to Minister Pravin Gordhan, when he said a particular amount of money will be set aside to deal with the drought. Just today, we were in consultation with Deputy Minister Mcebisi Jonas to look at the priorities that must come into that particular relief. But it starts with us reprioritizing at the municipal level. It starts with us in the agricultural sector, adapting to the realities of climate change. We need to also commend the Department of Health and our communities that in the midst of this drought and water challenges, we have not had serious waterborne diseases because of the work that has been done in our communities. It is unfortunate that people have lost livestock, but working together with the agricultural sector and Grain South Africa, a lot has been done, and it has really showed that we've got good men and women in South Africa who play no politics, but appreciate that drought is like a silent war that has engulfed all of us. In conclusion, I urge members of this House to also take responsibility and desist from being critical but making meaningful contribution. And in earnest, some of them are part of this other side that normally you never find good counsel, but there are one or two of them that one appreciates the wise counsel that they've given to us. We need to also take responsibility. Stop playing in your shower, get into the shower and get out. Stop irrigating your garden. Get into your house, use a bucket to clean your car. Don't wash your car with a hose pipe.
Order, honourable members.
Use a bucket to clean. And those who have had water, remember, we also still have a responsibility to attend to the more than 14% of the South Africans who are as yet to be served. So we definitely have to deal with these matters, because you may be the ones who, because of your color and the past system, you have always benefited. We need to deal with the inequalities that go also with water and access to dignified sanitation. Thank you, Nyabong.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. The next speaker is the Honourable Paulson. Order, Honourable members.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. Honourable House Chair, what we have in this country is a government that behaves like a child. And it doesn't matter how many times we tell this child not to play with fire, this child still goes and plays with the fire. The ANC has been warned that we would face serious drought in this country this year. But instead of planning for the consequences of the drought beforehand, the ANC does as it always does. It buries its head in the sand like the proverbial ostrich. The consequences are too dire to imagine. Pictures of dead livestock and of large swaths of land rendered barren by the drought have been splashed for all to see way too often. The cost to the economy are as disastrous as Mr. Zuma's actions to change finance ministers as if he is changing his underwear 3 times in 4 days. Experts say that the drought has already knocked off about 0.6% of our GDP. But it is among the emerging farmers where the effects of drought will be most severe. In the district of Herschel in the Eastern Cape, emerging sheep livestock farmers without any support from government have seen their livelihood dissipate before their very own eyes, with devastating effects on them, their families, and the microeconomy of that region. Emerging small crop farmers in Keiskamma region, who have been working hard without any government support to revive aging irrigation systems, have had their dreams and aspirations wiped out before their very own eyes, killing off any prospect of agricultural-induced development in that development-starved part of the country. The underlying problem in all of this is that the ANC for over 2 decades has refused to provide any significant support to agriculture, despite our incessant warnings telling the ANC that agriculture can never function without comprehensive government support and protection. The refusal of the government to declare drought as a national disaster is exacerbating an already volatile agricultural industry and is running counter to what the government purports to be doing, and that is to support emerging black farmers. As a result of this drought, it is going to be difficult for black farmers in particular who have no productive land and who did not benefit from state-sponsored theft of land as their white counterparts did. There are still areas to this day, such as the Oxkraal Dam in Queenstown, where white farmers still refuse to share water from their private dams with black farmers. This drought is once again proving what we have always said. We need a state-structured intervention, or we need a structured state intervention in agriculture. We need the state to be in a position to support small-scale farmers who are always vulnerable to natural disasters of this nature. We need Mr. Zuma to declare the drought a national emergency and for government to do all it can to support our farmers. But we know Mr. Zuma is secure in the comfort of his very own fire pool to worry about the rest of us who are suffering. We know that Mr. Zokwana knows nothing about agriculture, and he has this tendency of not speaking the truth, as he did last year when he claimed that people of Magwati were getting paid while they were not. Minister of Water and Sanitation should stop relying on Operation Hydrate to do the work that her department is supposed to be doing. Let us hasten in protecting our agriculture before it is too late. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is the Honourable Kebekulu.
Thank you, House Chair. As this drought continues to ravage the country, and with some of our provinces already being declared as disaster areas, we must ask ourselves the question, as government, and that is, are we doing enough to ameliorate the impact of this drought? Many rivers and dams are all but drying out. Grass for our livestock is gone. Dams that still have a little water left have to lower their minimum thresholds capacity as to provide water to surrounding communities. Rain patterns have changed, and the rain that is falling is light and of little consequence. It is common knowledge that our agricultural production has been severely impacted. Food security has already collapsed, with the result that now having to import tons of maize to make up the shortfall. Commercial and subsistence livestock farmers are helplessly looking on as their animals die on a daily basis from malnourishment, and lack of water. Residents are having to compete now for water supply in our rural areas, as there is simply not enough water available in our boreholes, most of which are rapidly drying up. Honourable House Chair, it is not like this drought was unforeseen, as weather experts had long ago predicted the event. We simply chose not to heed the call, and now we suffer the consequences of being unprepared to adequately deal with the challenges the situation presents. Kwababekezela ngesimo sezulu basiqagula lesi simo, kodwa kukhomba ukuthi abanakwanga iminyango yombuso, namhla usubamba uyayeka. Emergency relief fit for cattle is being disturbed and in stop and start, and it is woeful, shortens in supply, with our subsistence livestock owners being hit the hardest in this respect. Additional, those livestock farmers with more than 12 head of cattle are having to pay for relief feed from the state. Most cannot afford this. Honourable House Chair, this drought has the potential to severely impact on our citizens and our economy. Food shortages lead to price hikes, which in these trying economic times can be ill afforded by our citizenry. We call on government to do everything within its power in order to reduce the impact of this drought on our country. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Kubisa.
House Chairperson, the current drought is recorded history of South Africa since 1904, and it is continuing in several of our provinces. The World Bank estimated that South Africa's worst drought has pushed around 50,000 people below the national poverty line. It is reported that field and livestock conditions in the majority of our country and remain poor, and irrigated crops are currently under stress due to the lack of sufficient water and high temperatures. The level of major dams are generally low, with restrictions being imposed on irrigation in a number of areas, and many dry land farmers could not begin planting during the normal planting window due to lack of soil moisture. Significant livestock mortalities have been reported in KwaZulu-Natal, Limpopo, Northwest, and Free State. And it is estimated that the agricultural production will decrease by 10% in the Western Cape alone, at a cost of approximately 4 billion rand. Farmers have their highest ever debt of 125 billion rand with South African banks. Drought-stricken farmers need almost 4 billion in aid. The reduction in agricultural production will have a significant impact on the price and availability of food in the near future. Our food security is at risk, and staple foods such as maize will have to be imported at astronomical prices given the steady decline in the international value of our currency. It is safe to say that the economic impact will be difficult to quantify as the damage runs deep and cannot always be measured in rands and cents. Sifisa ukuthi sincome izinhlangano ezifana no Gift of the Givers for the good work they are doing in supplying water, especially in rural areas. It is estimated by Agri South Africa that if the situation becomes worse, in a year, the debt and the aid that the farmers could need would be about 6 billion rand. And in 3 years, it could be about 18 billion rands. This drought, however, Honorable House Chair, is taking far more than an economic toll. It speaks of a human suffering, and it heralds an arrival of socio-economic misery on a scale which we still have to come to terms with. The question we need to ask, House Chairperson, who's going to bear the brunt of the economic and humanitarian impact of this drought, honorable members? It is not you and me who have steady incomes or the so-called middle class. No, it will be the poor who will bear the brunt of this drought. It will be the old grandmother who's helping to raise grandchildren on a meager pension who will suffer, as will be a subsistence farmer in Umkhanyakuta district who has lost all his livestock.
Honourable member, your time is now expired. Honourable member, your time is expired. The next speaker is the Honourable Fultane.
Thank you, Chair. Although the agricultural sector's relative contribution to the gross domestic product of the country is small and still declining, it nevertheless plays an important role in the creation of wealth and safety nets in South Africa, especially in the rural areas. Drought has severely affected the country's agricultural productivity capacity and thus affecting negatively our GDP. It affects both crop and livestock farming devastatingly. The loss of maize exports and the move to import more results in the widening of the trade deficit. Agricultural export makes up about 11% of South Africa's total annual exports. Surely this year in 2016, agricultural export revenue is likely to drop. Emerging farmers are often inadequately resourced for the task at hand. As a result, when drought strikes, they are found to be very, very vulnerable to its negative impact. Current water policy does not provide sufficiently for economic development. Only household supplies are prioritized. In the last 10 years, the agricultural sector lost 30% of its strength, both in personnel and in production. Consequently, by the time South Africa was hit by drought last year, it was already facing serious food shortages. Lack of social security on farms contributed tremendously to this state of affairs. People started moving to the urban areas in search of a better lifestyle. The consequence thereof is that the infrastructure in urban areas found itself overburdened by this influx, thus putting extra pressure on the infrastructure budgets of the national fiscus. As a result of the current drought, grain producers lost over 10 billion between 2014 and 2016 and still counting. Losses of livestock as well as crops resulted in real-time loss of trading capital. No grain, no gain, so says the brewing industry. The liquor industry is under threat to lose jobs as production from brewing has to be reduced as a result of reduced water resources. More job losses from a different sector. The Fesatlala program, which got cabinet approval in 2013, has yet to produce any significant results as the government continues to recycle and refine planning and implementation thereof. Government intervention should focus mainly on the following: appropriate infrastructure like roads and irrigation, plus equipment, guarantees in order to enable to secure farmer loans, better farming methods, e.g. moisture conservation and soil preparation methods. Drought effect negating farming methods need to be put
Honourable
in
Member,
place.
your time has expired.
Government must do more. Thank you.
The next speaker is the Honourable Mulder.
Honourable Chairperson, maybe if we want our Parliament to be taken seriously, we will have to reconsider in terms of our programme when we schedule important debates on subjects like this. I don't think we should have it business as normal to start off with motions and continue for 2 hours and then at the end of the week try to address something that impacts on our country and our economy and all our people. I think we should really do that. The second point I would like to make, Chairperson, is that we are all politicians and we all perhaps like to play politics, but there are certain subjects that are above politics. And a drought like this should not politicize that. Because we can criticize the government as much as we like, but they cannot make rain. We can discuss and talk what we do about the drought. But the reality is the impact of the drought has an effect on all of us. When we talk about agriculture in South Africa, our country is both a developed country in terms of agriculture, but also a developing country in terms of agriculture. In 1990, South Africa had approximately 66,000 commercial farmers, and today we have maybe less than 35,000. But because we are also a developing country in terms of our agriculture, we have a huge emerging farmer sector, approximately 1.4 million, even more. But the reality is, the 35,000 commercial farmers are producing 95% of our food production in South Africa. 95%. And that is typical of a developed country in terms of agriculture. We've heard and we know that approximately 60% of our population is urbanized. But we have to take measures to retain and make sure that those 35,000 commercial farmers can stay on the land and can produce the food that we need. They produce 95% of all the food that we eat. So we have to take steps and make sure that they can survive through this drought. And if we look at them, they have farming debt, huge debt. The drought has a severe impact on their cash flows, and we have to find a way to make it possible for them to survive this drought. A practical proposal, perhaps. Is there a way that the government can assist them in terms of the basic minimum wage that is expected of them to be paid? Because the reality is, because of the drought and because of the cash flow problem, if they cannot pay the minimum wage, what will they do? They will get people to leave the farms because they cannot afford that. We cannot have a situation where we're going to lose jobs. We have approximately 850,000 workers on our farms. Can't we find a way to assist those farmers to bridge and carry them over the drought until the cash flow situation is better once again? I want to ask the Minister to really consider this kind of thing. We cannot afford to move into a situation where we have not food security. We have to find a way to get beyond this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Carter.
Very difficult to better that speech. Deputy Chairperson, Cope stated in November, a perfect storm has arrived without a cloud in sight. Our Rainbow Nation do not need a World Cup to bring us together. This national disaster did pull us together. The Congress of the People wants to thank every citizen who rallied behind the call for help. Thank you to everyone that filled up bottles with water, collected grass cuttings and taking it to depots, bought bales of feed, provided trucks to deliver the much-needed food and water to farmers. The stark reality is that we didn't save for a rainy day. We didn't make hay while the sun was shining. We will battle to mitigate the effects of this drought. It beggars belief that the ruling party is unable to declare this drought, which is a national disaster, as a national disaster, because it blew our contingency fund on an unrealistic, vote-gaining 10% increase in public servants' salaries. Cope calls on government to be bold and declare this drought a national disaster today. COPA supported the sector's request that is as follows. The state issue guarantees to all farmers to facilitate farmers obtaining loans to ensure their chances of recovery and food production moving forward. The state provide all farmers with farm workers subsidies to ensure continued job security. COPE calls on the Defence Force to assist in humanitarian relief across South Africa. COPE calls on government to ensure that local government implements strong water restrictions across the country immediately. No watering of grass and non-food plants. Minister van Rooyen, now is your time to shine. Create local government relief depots across the country. Instruct municipalities not to poison grass and cosmos on the side of the roads and restrict them from burning or selling grass. Trim tree branches. Take your election machinery in the form of extended public work projects to cut all the long grass on the side of all the roads and deliver it to depots. Liaise with farmers in each municipality to bring baling machinery in to bale the grass. Speak to the private sector to assist with transport. South Africans in private sector has the will, and if government has the will to work with them, we can survive the storm until a cloud arrives. Request municipalities to immediately identify water leaks and do repairs. Unless government implement the recommendations from the sector, this drought and the political storm that has been brewing is about to batter us without a cloud in sight. Minister van Rooyen,
Honourable Member, your time is now expired.
It's your time to shine. Thank you.
The next speaker is the Honourable Dudley.
Thank you, Chair. South Africa is currently experiencing one of the most severe droughts this century, and agricultural production is expected to be significantly lower than normal. The effects of the drought will no doubt put pressure on food prices, with hikes likely in everything from maize and grains to meat, poultry and dairy products. The ACDP notes that Grain South Africa estimates that South Africa will have to import about 5 million tonnes of maize, while pointing out that our ports only have the capacity to transport 4 million tonnes a year. With South Africa's ports operating at capacity, just dealing with our own requirements, the requirements of Namibia, Botswana, Zambia, and at least Zimbabwe and Malawi are not going to be able to be accommodated. Now, this poses serious threat of mass starvation and will have a knock-on effect for South Africa, with a possible huge influx of people trying to evade starvation and all that goes with it. Now, with the weak rand and lack of rain increasing food producers' input costs, consumers are bound to feel the inflationary effects. It will, however, be far worse for farmers, as financial institutions are also likely to respond cautiously, making it increasingly difficult for food producers to get further finance. The ACDP commends the exceptional efforts by farmers in need who have stood together to supply needy farms and farmers in crisis. Despite all the challenges, however, according to a report by the McKinsey Global Institute, the sector still has significant potential to grow the country's economy and create jobs. So this will, of course, depend on whether or not steps are taken that focus on increasing the productivity of existing farmland, improving access to value-added processing, proactively managing impending supply disruptors such as the drought and water availability, and providing help to control the impact of market volatility in commodity prices on farmers. The severe losses caused by the drought have led to an increase in insurance claims, affecting the ability of companies to offer insurance. In the interests of sustainable food production, it is critical for government and insurers to find ways to address this. The ACDP welcomes efforts by the SAIA, the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, Treasury and the Land Bank in working together to create a legislated cultural insurance framework which, with a sustainable public-private partnership for multi-peril crop insurance. Now, the ACDP calls on government to fast-track the creation of a fund for the kinds of agricultural risks that are presently a reality. Lastly, the ACDP is concerned by reports that government intends relaxing rules on GMOs to facilitate increased maize imports from the US and Mexico. Presently, almost 90% of maize in South Africa is genetically modified. On the one hand, the shortage of white maize could affect almost 2.7 million homes in South Africa if the drought continues, and on the other, the relaxing of the few restrictions on GMO imports has its own potentially negative
Honourable Member, your time is
for
now
agriculture
expired.
and society in general. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is the Honourable Chaisa.
Thank you very much, Honourable House Chair. The drought that we have experienced as a country has put our country in a very bad state of affairs.
Honourable members, can we just keep the noise level down, please?
In particular, agricultural economy has suffered a lot. Commercial and small-scale farmers have got nothing left to supply the country and feed their families. This has also given rise to high rate of unemployment, and many employees were to be relieved of their duties because due to the fact that their salaries or wages could no longer be paid. It has also resulted in death of many livestock because they could not be properly fed. One farmer had to take his own life because of frustration. What a pain. Many areas could not have water for ordinary drinking and washing purposes. Sanitation could no longer be maintained. Most of the dams dried up, and some do not have water up to date. In terms of water supply, service delivery could not take place in many municipalities. This has led to many people catching fever and diseases due to death or unclean areas. It is worse with the people of Tsitsana in Mount Fletcher and Chosin in KwaZulu-Natal. These people have been living without water for several months. We need to come up with an immediate turnaround strategy to assist those people in those two areas. Agricultural economy has suffered a lot. Agriculture is one of means of boosting the economy of the country. Hawkers have been affected because they can no longer have vegetables or crops to sell because of this drought. The budget that has been allocated to DAV should be used to address the plight of these farmers so as to contribute to the growth of economy. It is time now that we come and reason together so that now we fight this drought. However, harvest is going to be very bad. We are now going to import maize instead of exporting maize to the countries that we used to. We hope things will change for better this time so that now we boost the economy of the country so that the people now do not suffer anymore because it has been so long now that they've been suffering. So we call upon each and everybody now that let us do something better to help the economy of the country and fight this drought. I thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable P. Mabe.
Thanks, Honourable House Chair. I think we must first start by agreeing with the Freedom Front Plus that government cannot make rain. Premise this on a quote by Martin Luther King Jr., who captured our imagination as solution-driven agents of change, condemning silence when he said, "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter." The People's Government, as led by the ANC, affirmed by over 11 million South Africans and presiding on a population of over 50 million people, has decided never to remain silent when our country faced one of the worst droughts to hit the region in 3 decades. We've been told that this drought is attributed to the extreme weather phenomenon El Nino, which is a natural climate cycle that is characterized by prolonged warming of surface temperatures of the Pacific Ocean that has a global impact on weather patterns, making rain to be scarce. As true servants of the people
and understanding the magnitude and severity of the disaster, the ANC-led government opted not to be silent about what matters. The drying crops, the drying taps, the dying crops, as well as the fading livestock. All of this and many others caused by drought required urgent and immediate attention. We have seen our government in action through various government departments and various state-owned entities rolling out multiple and innovative drought reduction measures. We also appreciate the supply of livestock feed to reduce livestock mortality and urge government to build on some of these working measures to empower us to effectively respond to another El Nino phenomenon. Should there be recurrence, including providing the farming community...
Arise on a point of order.
Honourable Member, will you just take a seat, please? What is a point of order, Honourable Member?
Since when are animals equal to human beings?
Honourable Member.
There's no mortality in animals.
That is not a point of order. Continue, Honourable Mabe.
No, that's fine. It was just a small, short break. We'll continue. We do have in this gallery members of the farming community who must live here well knowledgeable on what is being done to address drought. We continue to tell no lies and claim no easy victories. There are many people from the farming community this side. Our movement, the ANC, has always been about hope and caring for our people. When we met with Grain SA a week ago, we also encouraged them to look at interventions like rain harvesting as well as recycling water as some of the available mitigations against drought, which the government is already exploring. Minister Mokonyane has already spoken about some of this. We want the agricultural sector to be successful and sustainable and meet its NDP targets of creating 1 million jobs by 2030. A united front. Bagolo ba boletši ba re mphiri o tee ga o lle ba feleletša ka gore tau tša hloka seboka di šitwa ke nare e tlotša go thibela tšhilafatšo ya leratadima go nyaka tšhomišano mmogo ya maafrika borwa re eme mmogo re le seboka. In this regard, the real opposition we are all facing is the disaster itself. We must not ignore the role and impact of indigenous knowledge systems to enriching our ability to resolve the drought disaster. These systems implore on us to understand and appreciate the importance of harmony between nature and humans. The Balobedu people of Limpopo, the rightful subjects of Queen Mojaji, the Rain Queen, still practice rain-making ceremonies. In the good olden days, matlapa sa leboleta, onesha pula go be go le bobebe, because our people practice good values and rituals to the latter. For instance...
Honourable Mabe, honourable members to my left, there's really too much noise coming from you. Okay? Let us give a fair chance for the speaker to be heard. Continue, honourable member.
Yes, it's very important that they hear how we solved rain problems even when we were not a democracy. In the good olden days, matlapa sa leboleta, onesha pula go be go le bobebe, because our people practiced good values and rituals for the latter. For instance, when a child was born, certain rituals would have to be performed to encode within the baby a sense of discipline, courage, and belonging. Today, these rituals are mostly ignored, leading to most others erosion of our value system, pollution of the ecosystem, and growing tension in society. The people of Bolanoto, like the Mojaji dynasty, still believe firmly that rain is a reflection of success, prosperity, and unity. Today, these features, just with a view from this house, seem to be absent. Protests are becoming violent, chaos a way of life. With these systems, we can all help resolve the disaster, partly by staying cool and doing good to the people of this country. Khale kua morago kua ngwana nna ra fetša go tswala ba mo thekga tlhogwana ba tla ba thuša gore kua pele kua e tlebe ngwana a tlhompho wa go kgona go ikgantšha botse setšhabeng ba rile ba e berekile bjalo le go neša pula peo ya go e ba kaonenyana.
Honourable Mabe, will you just take a seat? Why are you rising, honourable member? Order, honourable members.
Honourable Chair, I just would like to ask whether you could ask the Honourable Pule Mabe whether he would take a question.
Honourable Mabe, are you prepared to take a question?
No, when we're busy educating people on how we make rain, we normally don't take questions.
The honourable member is not prepared to take a question. Continue, Honourable Member.
Not only did we do that in the past, to show you just how much we celebrated rain in the past.
Honourable Mabe, will you take your seat? What is the point of order, Honourable Member?
House Chair, we need solutions on the
Honourable
problem
Member, that
facing
is not
South
a
Africa.
point of order.
This
Take your
member
seat.
reads a rustation.
Continue,
he
Honourable
comes here
Mabe.
and reads a rustation.
There are 11 million people who voted for the ANC who want to hear how we are solving their problems. Some of them believe in these indigenous knowledge systems. To show you just how much we celebrated rain back in the past, kids born on rainy days would be named after rain. That's why we've got Nomvola. That's why you have got Pule. These are people born on rainy days.
Order, Honourable Members.
It is very important to understand because we are dealing with this question of drought in a much more focused way. We have spoken to a range of interventions. We have got an interministerial team that is attending to this. We have already had a number of stakeholder engagements. The people who are mostly affected by drought, the farmers who are out there, have got with them leaflets and pamphlets outlining and capturing the work of government in this regard. There are quite a lot of things that our government has been doing to attend to this. We did tell Grain SA as well about desalination. We told them about a range of other interventions that are available. These are some of the future interventions that our government will have to focus its energies on. Government will need to monitor drought conditions in the provinces and issue updated early warning information, advisory information to the sector, which includes strategies farmers should consider in planning their activities when drying conditions are experienced and forecasted. So it is important that those of you who do constituency work and meet with farmers, you need to tell them this open secret that the ANC is working and working for them. There is a need to change how we conduct our farming business and bring the much needed efficiencies. Such strategies include usage of grey water, especially in food gardens, water saving techniques. We've already spoken to rainwater harvesting. We ask ourselves, if some of you were in government, would you really think about these things? We are a caring government. We always take our people along. Even the budget speech of finance has also set aside monies to try and address the scourge of drought. Irrigating early in the morning or late afternoon to reduce evaporation. Of course, a lot of people here stay in flats, but when you go to villages, you irrigate in the morning and late in the afternoon to reduce evaporation. Using drip irrigation instead of sprinklers and maintaining or repairing irrigation systems. Proper field management practices, including keeping stock in balance with carrying capacity to avoid overstocking. Then you can see, this is a government of the people. That's why more than 11 million people of South Africa have trusted us with this responsibility of leading them. Because they know we care. Siyaqhuba. Reapil.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The next speaker is the Honourable Milam.
Chairperson, the issues of drought are not limited to prolonged periods of abnormally low rainfall. Of particular concern is the failure of this government and many municipalities to properly administer the water resources under their control and to maintain the water infrastructure. In a water-scarce country, we can ill afford to allow any water to go to waste. And part of the problem is we don't know how much water we are losing to wastage. We know how much is produced by the water treatment plants, we know how much is billed, we know the difference between those two amounts, but the system losses, the water that literally goes down the drain unused, that we don't know. And while the long-term effects of the drought are of critical concern, it must be noted that more than 55 towns and communities have no water right now. My colleague, Honourable Mbele, listed some of them during the SONA debate. Here are a few more. Jacobsdal, Fourie Smith, Tromsburg, Betuli, Smithfield, Zastron, Wepner, De Wetstorp, Delareysville, Deelsville, Brandfort, Tiernissen, Winburg, Soutpan, Tweespruit, Marquardt, Clockelan, Stainsrus, Foriesberg, Meermal, Warden, Petrus Steyn, Lindley, Parys, Koppies, Vredefort, Oranjeville, Senekal, Kwakwa, Mangaung, Kroonstad. And I could go on and on and on.
Order, honourable members.
As Honourable Mbele said, awake amanzi. In most cases, it is a result of mismanagement and maladministration, which have now become a massive crisis. And yet...
Honourable Milam, will you just take your seat? Yes, Honourable Member, why are you rising?
Sorry to disturb the member, but I just like to check with you, Chairperson. Where's the Minister of Water and Sanitation? She's just left and we are debating.
No, Honourable Member, that point is not relevant. Continue, Honourable Milam.
And yet, our extremely qualified Minister of this and that has not seen fit to declare a national crisis, a national disaster. And if the Minister were here, I'd say to her that I repeat what I said during SONA, that the work of non-governmental organizations is extremely commendable, and we are indeed very grateful for their intervention. But that does not excuse government, whether provincial, national or local, from their responsibility to ensure that all South Africans have access to sufficient water. In fact, Minister Mokonyane, Section 27(2) of the Constitution expressly places that duty upon the state. It is of major concern that very few municipalities have made any significant progress on incorporating climate change and its associated risks in their planning. But even where they have, the support from national and provincial government in addressing these risks is woefully inadequate. Now, I note that Honourable Mabe, that overaged member of the ANC's kindergarten, acknowledged that this is indeed a disaster. Honourable Mabe, I want to say to you that you can't water your crops or your animals with leaflets and pamphlets. Section 23(6) of the Disaster Management Act defines a national disaster as one that affects more than one province. Thus far, no less than 7 provinces have declared the drought a disaster of either a provincial or local magnitude. But will the best qualified finance minister ever appointed, oh, I'm sorry, he's not that anymore, is he, have the guts to declare a national disaster, so that the emergency funding can be released and resources such as the SANDF can be brought in to assist? No, he won't. Will the esteemed Minister of Weekend Specials intervene and take over the administration of municipalities that are failing to meet their financial and service delivery obligations? No, he won't. Will he ensure that the Municipal Water Infrastructure Grant and the Municipal Infrastructure Grant and the Urban Settlement Development Grant are used as intended to upgrade and maintain the water infrastructure of our municipalities and provide basic services, and not to pay municipal salaries? No, he won't. Will the Minister of No Water and Poor Sanitation stop playing hide and seek with the blue and green drop reports? No, she won't. Will she admit the true state of affairs of South Africa's water resources and the extent of our reliance on other countries for our water? No, she won't. Will the Minister of Finance top up our contingency reserves, which are meant to address emergency funding requirements such as this, but were instead drained to pay for a bloated public wage bill? No, he won't. Why won't they do this? Because, fellow citizens, I'm sorry to say that the drought is not the worst disaster in South Africa. No, the biggest disaster in our country is the ANC government.
The next speaker is the Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries.
May I address you, House Chairperson?
Yes, Honourable Member.
I addressed you on a convention in the House that when a member participates in a debate, it is courtesy for the member to stay until the end of the debate. And I submit that the Minister left the House without an explanation, or perhaps she did forward one to the Chair.
As you say, Honourable Member, it's a convention, it is not a rule. The Honourable Minister.
House Chair, Honourable Members of Parliament, let me admit and say this is a severe disaster that is facing farmers. It does not only face farmers, but all communities. We have said so many times, we have not been in denial. We accept that it is the most drastic to happen. But the first drought was in 1768, and many droughts have happened. And I believe, therefore, that I have been told that it is not noise that grows crops, and those who farm knows. Thank you, Mr. Mulder. Your statement is so correct. You chose to disober when others have chosen to believe that drought can be a political matter. This government has been working with farmers. We understand their pain. They have told us. We have seen their cattle dying. Yesterday, I spoke with Mr. Chris van der Merwe of Bloemfontein, who told me about his crops that have died before they could yield anything. That is the situation we are in. Let us be honest to say that other than drought, there are other factors that impede the progress of farmers. In this country, every year, 50% of the wheat we eat is imported. The question is why? It is not the issue of drought. It is not the issue that there's no water. It is because farmers are no longer incentivized to be in wheat production. The reason is simple and economical. When you buy a loaf of bread at 11 rands, only 3 rands, 38 cents goes to the farmer. Those are facts. That is not political. But the point, I think, therefore, one member of the FF understood that he can work with government, and I will not mention his name, lest his counterparts may think that he had betrayed them. When his cattle were dying, he came to me. In the following morning, we dispatched a group of veterinarians. His cattle today are as healthy like anything. So as a government, we don't discriminate.
On a point of order.
Honourable Minister.
House Chair.
Honourable Minister, will you just take your seat,
It is the responsibility of government
member.
to assist farmers. It was
Honourable
never a
member,
favor.
that's not the point of order.
Whether that person was an EFF member or not,
Continue, Honourable
it is
Minister.
your duty.
We have a national disaster.
Order, Honourable members.
We have recognized it, and we have created and we have declared areas affected, which have been assessed according to law. And there have been people who have been calling for us to declare a national disaster. People must understand that banks have got portfolios that look at different commodities. You will have a commodity, a section of the bank that will look at mining, says to look at risk and the rest. So is the case with agriculture. What would be the situation if you say there's no crop that will give us any yield at the end of the year? We know very well that today we will be able to harvest, if everything remains the same, 7.4 million tons of maize. That is true as per the latest estimations. And estimations are done cyclically because things change. If there's more rain, we will have more maize. If there's less rain, we will have less maize. That is science. That is not what you think may happen. I wonder why people are saying, let's declare national disaster. Well, the very province that they lead have declared only 3 municipalities. I found it funny that when they're given funding to make sure that black farmers are assisted, they choose to assist commercial farmers with the fund that they were given. I want to urge the House that when we deal with this matter, we must think of those farmers who are really struggling
Honourable Minister,
to make the means.
will you just take your seat, please? Why are you rising, Honourable Member?
I'm rising on the point that the minister is misleading the House.
No, honourable member. That's a point for debate. It's not a point of order. Continue, honourable minister.
It is a fact that was confirmed by the MEC of the Western Cape to the fact that black farmers constitute 1% of farmers in the Western Cape, for there's no land set aside for black farmers. Where would they assist then? Whom would they assist? I agree with Mr. Mulder. It is not a political matter. It is a matter that is facing farmers who may not be able to put any. We call upon all of us to make sure that our hearts goes to those farmers. We call upon everybody who claims to be in this parliament on behalf of a constituency who may be facing problems. I'm not calling upon you because you are in the leading government. I'm calling upon you as a South African to say that if there's something we can do is to feel for those who don't have water to drink, whose cattle are dying on a daily basis, whose crops are dying. What we have done since this situation was declared, we've been able to make sure that 20% of the grants in provinces are reprioritized to make sure that they assist farmers. We've drilled boreholes. We've supplied the feed for livestock. We've made a point that we meet, luckily, in the team we work with different commodity organizations. And we share ideas with them. Only yesterday they were saying they want to join government to make sure that we retill the untilled land in the rural areas. And I'm saying so because time has come for people to believe that it is not thunder again that makes crops to grow. You don't have to make noise to be heard what you are saying. So listening is a skill. This government has been investing through land care program, animal and fat management program, the River Valley Catalytic program, working for fire, working for water, and related programs to deal with this situation. Our research council recently invented a 20% drought-resistant seed that would stand the worst conditions that may face our farmers in the future. Under the National Red Meat Development Program, government has completed 13 of the 38 identified custom feeding facilities, and those are feedlots.
Honourable Minister, will you take your seat? Why are you rising, Honourable Member? Honourable Minister, are you prepared to take a question?
I will do that later towards the end.
The Minister will take a question towards the end if there's time left. Thank you.
And a feedlot for those who are not involved in agriculture is a structure that you create to make sure that animals are fed and fattened so that they can be able to realize their value when you sell them, is what you are doing. And we have identified 38, 13 have been completed. It is just 6 drought mitigation facilities are now operational in KwaZulu-Natal. And we have made a point that farmers can sell their livestock after being fattened. And we're doing that so that small-scale farmers in rural areas can benefit. In this country, unlikely, we have got 3 forms of farmers. Subsistence farmers who reside in rural areas. Emerging farmers who have received land from the Department of Land Reform and Land Reform. And commercial farmers. And I said 3, Amos Lester, I said 3. And I can tell you that of those commercial farmers, only 12.7 hectares of our land is Arab land. Who is 80% of that is in the hands of the commercial farmers. That is the fact. But what has happened
On a
during
point
this
of
drought?
order, House Chair.
Honourable Minister.
I have never seen
That's
such
not
a
the point of
scared
order.
man
Take your seat.
with a
Continue,
political
Honourable
power mention that those people are
Order,
white
Honourable
farmers.
members.
Say it yourself.
Continue, Honourable Minister.
About 246,631 farmers are reported to be affected by the drought. 9.3 million livestock are vulnerable to drought conditions. 83,161 livestock are reported to have died due to drought. What is the implications to food availability? We are aware that South Africa will have to import 3.8 million tons of maize. According to the report I have received, which is scientific, is 3.8, which has been confirmed by those who have done cross-crop estimates. They are not flying in a plane, they are on the ground. And I'm saying, therefore, that as a country we are ready, and those who question whether our ports will be able to take that load, the answer is yes, we have checked with them. House Chair, before I tell this House that the ANC cares, and we believe that we have been dealing with formations and organizations, let me read the House an SMS from Leo Raman, a smallholder farmer who originates from the rural community area of Pila in Khaima Municipality, Namakwa District, Northern Cape. I am very grateful and more than satisfied with the drought assistance from the Professional Department of Agriculture, Land Development to subsistence and smallholder farmers. I am on a plus farm called Velgevonden with a size of 7,229 hectares, farming 500 Dopa iwis. I received 19 bags of yellow maize, 19 bags of drought pellets, and 60 bales of lucerne, worth 14,200, that I will wisely use to round off my lambs and also use fodder for my iwis and with tin lambs, as they are very important in a viable farming practice.
Honourable Minister, will you take your seat, please? Why are you rising, Honourable Member?
Chair, I'm wondering when the Minister is going to get to the part when he's going to tell us when he's going to
Honourable
start
Member,
expropriating land.
That's not the
when
point
are you
of
going to
order.
start expropriating
Continue,
farms?
Honourable Minister.
The government has been rolling out a disaster risk management system under the Provision of Disaster Management Act 57
On a point of order,
2002.
House Chair.
No, Honourable Minister, what is the point of order?
The very same province of Northern
No,
Cape.
Honourable Member.
4 farmers.
Honourable Member, let
are
me
sharing
caution you
one
formally
farm.
now.
So don't come
Honourable
and claim
Member.
4 farmers
Honourable Minister,
are
take
sharing
your seat,
one
please.
farm.
The Department
Honourable
of
Minister, take your seat, please. Honourable Member, this is the 7th time that you've decided just to take the mic and you're not raising any substantive point of order. I now request you to take your seat.
I have a right.
Take your seat.
The member is lying.
Honourable Member,
the minister
take
is
your
lying.
seat. If you refuse to take your seat, then I will have to request you to withdraw from the House. Continue, Honourable Minister.
The Department of Agriculture has reportedized the 387 million rands for livestock feed, water provision assistance for smallholder farmers. Head of Rural Development and Land Reform has put aside 422 million rands to supply livestock feed, fire pellets, and livestock water and fire belts, fence and fencing. 71 million rands have been directed at 9,205 sugarcane farmers on a 43,000 hectares, 796 hectares. A total of 131 of the 734 planned livestock water boreholes have been drilled and equipped. More than 1,000 bags and tons of livestock feeds have been distributed to the affected farmers in the country. The ITC...
Order, Honourable Members. Continue, Honourable Minister.
The The IDC and Land Bank has recently set aside R500 million in the form of concessionary loans to include commercial farmers. The Land Bank will next 2 weeks announce the procedure to assess those loans. We have substantially reduced the livestock losses by supporting the farmers to feed and sell non-breeding animals. Government has to date committed on agriculture more than 1.3 billion rands. Let this House listen to initially sad story, but now a comfortable story following the intervention in Mpumalanga. Ekhaba Livestock Project under leadership Mr. Enoch Nkosi in Chief Lutuli, Khetsibanda in Mpumalanga, suffered the loss of 86 cattle due to drought last year. The department assisted the cooperative with fodder, feed, supplements, and water. The mortality has dropped. The cattle now look healthy, and they've saved 150 head of cattle. All those efforts and interventions of government are meant to keep the farmers on the farm and farming. We have established a task team by the department consisting of social cluster departments to monitor vulnerable status and certain efforts to reduce vulnerable rural areas. Those efforts include providing inputs for household and food production. Let me say this lastly. We believe that we have to change the mode of agriculture. We can't continue tilling because after every drought, there may be a La Nina that can cause soil erosion. We need then to go to conventional agriculture. We need to spend less money. As a country, the reason that it is difficult to farm, and I agree with people who said that farmers have dropped. The reason is it is expensive to farm because of the input costs. 70% of farmers' costs is because of that. We mine phosphate, we sell it raw, it comes back and fertilizer, it is costly. We're engaging the farmers, we're engaging government to find a way where we can cushion the plight of farmers so that they can do farming. I agree that without farmers producing food, there cannot be safety, there will be hunger in the country. To achieve our goals, we need those noble men and women who don't make noise when they deal with issues, but who listen.
Honourable
and come
Minister,
with
your
ideas.
time is now expired.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Order. Honourable members, that concludes the debate and the business for the day, and the House is adjourned.